Welcome to our fourth Table Read Tuesday, where we're reading one of the best animated films ever made that many people have never heard of or never seen, and definitely never read. So this is The Iron Giant, and we're going to quickly go around the table and have everyone do a real quick introduction. And then at the end of the reading, we will give everyone a longer chance to say what they're doing and where to find them. So first up, Mr. Clint Monroe.
Hey everybody, it's great to be back. This will be my fourth one that I'm doing. I'll be reading as Dean, who's kind of like a hippie artist type dude, and kind of defends the outcast, which is a super cool, admirable thing to be. Anyways, yeah, like he was saying, like Jacob was saying, The Iron Giant is a classic, and you know, when they released it, it didn't get the publicity that it did, but it's just become this underground following. And like watching it again, there's so much good in there. It's a really, really great film. So I'm super excited. And I hope you guys enjoy watching it.
Thank you. And Heather-Leigh Cameron.
Hi, my name is Heather-Leigh Cameron. It's great to be back. I will be reading The Captain, Third Busybody Teacher, and Agent One. Nice to see you again.
Always good to see you. Don.
Hi, I'm Don Lampasone. I'm going to be reading Kent and the Giant. And this is my third time reading with you guys, and I've been having fun doing it. So that's why I'm back.
Awesome. It's fun to have you. Vicki.
Hi, I'm Vicki Dykes. This is my third time reading with you guys, and I will be doing 10 small parts, smattering throughout the wonderful movie that we're about to do. I hope you all enjoy it.
Angelina.
Hello, I'm Angelina Peterson, and I'm going to be reading for Annie the Mama and Myrtle.
Awesome. And Toni.
Hello, I'm Toni Flora, and I am going to be your narrator for tonight.
And Shawn.
Hi, I'm Shawn Alexander, and I'm going to be reading for Hogarth, the protagonist's adventurous young boy.
Awesome. And Jaime.
Hi, I'm Jaime Hill, and I'm reading 7 little characters in the movie.
Sweet. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to say before we get started? Everyone good?
Live long and prosper.
All right. We will try. All right, Toni, thank you, and take it away.
The Iron Giant, written by Tim McCanlies and Brad Bird. Screen story by Brad Bird. Inspired by the book by Ted Hughes. July 11, 1997 draft. Fade in, deep space. Stars blaze against the blackness of deep space. One star begins to move, coming closer, moving toward Earth. In space, blue seas, fleecy white clouds. Beep, beep, beep. A retro satellite, Sputnik, tumbles past. Below, near New England, black storm clouds swirl in silence. Flashes, lightning flickers. A ship on a storm-tossed sea, night. The wind howls, the storm rages in the chill waters off the rocky coast of Maine. Giant waves tower overhead, then crash over the decks of a fishing ship where desperate fishermen fight to stay alive. The captain yells orders no one can hear in the deafening roar. Interior ship's main cabin, night. The first mate yells into the radio, their only hope. First mate.
Mayday, mayday. This is fishing ship Annabelle. We're floundering and taking on water. Mayday, mayday.
An enormous wave smashes against the bow of the ship, throwing everyone in the cabin off balance. A glass shatters. The captain enters. The two lock eyes. It looks bad.
First officer, report! What's our position?
I don't know.
If you don't know where we are, then you don't know where we're going. You could be running us right into the rocks.
Then a voice breaks through the static on the radio.
Coast Guard, Portland Station, Annabelle, do you read me?
As the mate starts to answer, lightning strikes the huge mast. It crashes through the pilot house window, smashing the radio. Glass radio parts fly. The captain's shoulders slump. Now they're done for. On the deck, night. The captain comes out on deck. His men stare at him, eyes full of fear, desperation. Then, impossibly, the winds trail off. In seconds, the sea flattens into a sheet of glass. All is dead calm. It's eerie. Ropes creak. The men erupt in celebration, cheering, hugging each other. It's over. The angry captain yells,
"Ah! It's not over, you idiots! It's just the eye of the storm!"
The men look around. Far off on the horizon, the raging storm still surrounds the ship, but overhead, stars appear. It's eerie, strange.
Look!
Overhead, a new brilliant star appears, and it's quickly growing larger. The blazing light speeds toward the startled sailors, impossibly fast, intensely bright, blinding, all goes white. Ka-whoosh! The light crashes into the sea. Water flies, the sea boils, churning, roaring, the water green-lit from below. Great clouds of steam billow and hiss. Then, without warning, the raging storm roars back with a vengeance. A huge wave slams into the ship. Again, the fishermen fight for their lives. But then a dim light appears, far off in the rain. A barely visible beam sweeps back and forth in the storm.
"Oh, the lighthouse! Head for it!"
The desperate men struggle to steer their limping ship toward the light. Then clang! The ship shudders, stops instantly. The ship has slammed into a wall. A solid wall made of iron? The sailors freeze, speechless. They look up the wall. Up. Flashes of lightning illuminate a face. Twin beams of light come from what look to be eyes in an enormous face. A giant made of metal. Thunder booms. The impossible face seems to turn downward and looks at the men. The men quake. A huge wave crashes over the ship and throws the men overboard into the sea. The ship begins sinking fast. In the water near the cliffs, night. Men surface, cling to ship debris. 2 men in a lifeboat pull their comrades from the chill waters. A wave washes over the rocks, leaves behind a limp fisherman clinging to the rocks. Barely alive, whipped by wind and rain, he sees lightning brief glimpses of the giant thing as it moves off in the howling storm disappears. The view moves up the rocky cliff to the lighthouse perched atop the cliff. The brilliant beam tries in vain to penetrate the raging storm. Exterior Hogarth's house. That night, establishing, we push through the storm toward an upstairs window and into interior Hogarth's house. Continuous. A flashlight beam illuminates the storm smashing against a window. A wide-eyed 9-year-old boy, Hogarth, grips the flashlight. As the storm rages, Hogarth explores his room by flashlight. The moving beam gives life to the room full of toys and memorabilia. The wind howl grows louder. Glass shatters, and a cold wind whips into the room.
Hogarth?
The door flies open, and Hogarth's mother, Annie, is there. Late 20s, attractive.
Are you all right, honey?
Yeah, Mom. I'm okay.
Annie turns to the shattered window pane, then pushes Hogarth's bookshelf in front of it to block the wind. Hogarth stares at his mother. She looks spooked.
Are you?
I hate when the power goes out, but yes, I'm fine.
Outside, the wind howls.
Want to stay up with me for a while? I could tell you a story.
Annie smiles, touched.
A story, huh? What have you got for me this time?
Well, it's a story about...
Hogarth scans the toys and souvenirs on his bedside table. With a sudden flash of inspiration, he grabs a baseball card.
Mickey Mantle. He had a magic bat, Mom. Everybody says so.
As Annie watches Hogarth with motherly adoration, Hogarth picks up a plastic dinosaur.
Anyway, this is a story of Mickey's adventure with the Stegosaurus. It's got action and romance, and the best part is, it's all true.
Annie laughs and touches a fingertip on Hogarth's forehead.
Got a lot going on in there, don't you, Hogarth? Just like your father.
For a moment, Hogarth beams. He looks over at a framed photo that sits on his nightstand that shows a handsome man dressed in an army uniform. As he stares at the photo, a sad, pensive look comes over Hogarth's face. Annie sees it.
I can't wait till he comes back.
We've been through this before, honey.
They found his plane, Mom. They didn't find him. He's gonna come back.
Annie sees the resolute look in her son's eyes and decides to change tack.
So what could he do with that magic bat of his?
Huh?
Mickey Mantle. Could he cast spells with it? Like a magician?
Oh. Yeah, that's exactly what he could do. And that's why he was known as the Wizard of Sherwood Forest.
Sherwood Forest, huh?
Right. And then one day, the Stegosaurus shows up and he says, "Who thinks he is mightier than me? The mighty Thunder Lizard."
And all this is true now.
Every word, Mom. I wouldn't make this up. So Mickey says, "I'm the two-time American League batting champ. I was MVP of the All-Star game 3 times running. I could go anywhere I please in this forest."
We drift back from mother and son, hunkered down in a pool of warm flashlight surrounded by darkness. Exterior Rockwell the next morning. The sun has risen on a beautiful Maine morning. The camera starts high in a tall tree where a bird is repairing its storm-damaged nest and pans down from this literal bird's eye view to the streets of Rockwell, where stoic New Englanders are doing repairs of their own. Down the middle of the street comes Hogarth on a bike. In the wire basket in front of him is a shoebox with holes punched in the lid. A couple of locals are clearing a felled tree. We hear their conversation as they drift across the screen in Hogarth's traveling point of view.
Strangest storm I've ever seen. Swept away my best iron wheelbarrow, but left the handles behind.
Now Hogarth passes a pair of women who gossip as they rake up the leaves and branches.
My husband spoke to one of those fishermen this morning. Fellow wouldn't talk about the shipwreck at all. Said we'd all think he was mad.
Now, what do you think he meant by that?
Well, I'm sure, I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if the communists are coming.
Exterior, the Chat and Chew Diner, day. The Chat and Chew Diner sits near the dock and the town square, the center of all social life in the village. Hogarth arrives at last and parks his bike. He takes the shoebox out of his bike basket, opens it a little, and speaks to whatever is inside.
Remember, be charming.
Interior diner, day. The diner is packed. Everybody is here. Farmers, fishermen, all swapping storm stories. It's loud, and there's no empty table, no place to sit. Hogarth enters and looks around. He spots Annie, now dressed as a waitress and serving coffee from behind the counter. Hogarth puts on a big smile and waves at her.
"Hey, Mom, you won't believe our good luck. Look what I found."
He makes his way through the coffee shop to the counter. As he passes by, various local ladies, the busybodies, look up from their breakfast, mouths downcast and eyes half-lidded, ever ready to cast judgment should the precious opportunity arise. Hogarth arrives at the counter and opens the shoebox for Annie. A baby squirrel pokes its head out. Annie rolls her eyes.
"His tree must have gotten knocked down in the storm. Can I keep him?"
Hogarth, we've been through this. No pets.
"But he's not a pet, Mom. He's a friend. You're always saying I should have more friends come over, right? Well, now I've got one. You gotta admit, I'm making sense here."
Hogarth, if there's one thing we've learned from your many pets, it's that claws and furniture do not mix.
I know, but...
No buts. We've got to rent this room out this year if we're gonna make ends meet.
Nearby, a busybody perks up her ears, elbows her neighbor, and raises her eyebrows significantly.
And no one wants to live in a place with shredded furniture.
You'll never know he's there. I'll keep him in a cage.
Until you feel sorry for him and you set him free in the house. Remember the raccoon, Hogarth? God, I remember the raccoon.
Please, Mom. At least look at him.
All right. Where is this guy?
Hogarth grins and reaches down for his box, then notices there's nothing inside it. The squirrel has escaped. Hogarth looks back at Annie, hiding his desperation.
We'll go get him. Okay?
Hogarth turns, his eyes darting around frantically. Finally, he spies a furry tail disappearing under a 4-person table with a single occupant, hidden behind a newspaper.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
No response. Behind the paper, smoke rises.
Sir?
Still no response. Hogarth is getting exasperated.
Sir? 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 Excuse me, sir?
Hogarth stops with sudden realization. He slowly pushes down the top of the paper, revealing that the person he's talking to is asleep. A lit cigarette with an impossibly long ash dangles precariously from his lips. This is Dean McCoppin, sporting sunglasses, handsome in a rumpled sort of way. Unshaved, uncombed, unusual. A beatnik, here. Hogarth's heard of them, but this is the first one he's seen up close. The beatnik's head lolls, and his cigarette drops in his lap. He wakes.
Oh, snoring, right? Sorry, man. I'm just not a morning person.
Please don't move, sir. My pet's under your table. Don't look. If you make a scene, my mom won't let me keep him.
Don't worry, son. I'm as cool as a cute.
Shriek of pain. He leaps up, hollering, slapping at his smoking pants. On Annie as she turns to watch the commotion from across the room. The busybodies are all abuzz. Who is this weird guy with Hogarth? Resume Dean and Hogarth, as Dean finally gets under control. He looks around. The whole joint is staring at him. He picks up his cigarette butt and holds it as he addresses the other diners.
Had a little cigarette mishap. It's all under control. Show's over. Cool yourselves. Resume your breakfasting, people. What kind of pet do you have, kid?
A squirrel. Don't worry. He's friendly.
Is my son bothering you, sir?
Dean stares at Annie, smiling strangely.
Yes. No. Call me Dean.
As Dean and Annie size each other up, the 3 busybodies whisper cattily back and forth.
Oh, I don't know why they let such people in here.
She ought to just ignore him.
Huh. You forget how single she is, dear.
The busybodies exchange smug, catty grins. Exterior Rockwell Street, day. The camera is very low, as an official-looking car pulls up and comes to a stop in front of us, its front grille filling up the screen. The words U.S. Government are printed boldly across the top of the license plate. The camera pulls out, and the driver's side car door opens. A well-dressed man in his mid-30s, Kent Mansley, steps out, puffs on his pipe, and surveys his surroundings with a steely-eyed, square-jawed gaze. Now a troubled look comes over him as he notices the U.S. government decal on his car door is peeling off. He presses it flat, it curls up again. He presses it flat, it curls. He licks his fingers, rubs it on the decal, and presses it hard. And it holds. Kent's look of confidence returns. He slams the car door with authority. One side of the license plate unhinges and hangs at an angle. Kent sighs with defeat and walks away. Interior diner day. Annie speaks gently to Hogarth.
Hogarth? I thought you were getting your pet, honey.
I will, Mom. After I finish talking to...
Dean.
Dean.
Annie shrugs, exits. Hogarth looks at Dean curiously.
I found your pet.
Where?
Up my leg. Squirrel's in my pants, Hogarth. I'm trying not to wig out here, man.
Don't wig out.
Okay, he's heading up north. I'm sorry, kid.
Dean stands spasmodically and addresses the room.
I'd like to apologize to everyone in advance for this.
He unzips his fly and out pops the squirrel. There is a collective gasp and then a series of shrieks as the squirrel scampers around the diner. Dean
Check,
zips up
please. Oh,
and sits back down.
check,
Annie
please.
glares at a sheepish Hogarth. Exterior coffee shop day. Kent now holds a clipboard, taking notes as he talks to an old farmer. Nearby stands a tractor with a bite taken out of it.
And did you see any strange lights in the sky last night? Any saucer-shaped flying objects?
No.
Were any of your livestock disoriented this morning? Did your cows appear anxious or depressed?
No. Who did you say you work for again?
Kent puffs himself up a little bit.
Frankly, I'm not at liberty to reveal the particulars of the agency I work for.
He leans in confidently.
But between you and me, I represent the United States government, UPD, the Unexplained Phenomena Department.
The farmer also leans in confidently.
CIA?
Huh? No. Our scope is less limited than the CIA. Unexplained phenomena, my friend. That could be anything.
So you work out of the Pentagon then?
Well, sure. We work near the Pentagon, yes. You know, Radcliffe Street?
No.
Well, trust me. It's pretty much Pentagon adjacent. And all that implies.
So what do you think got my tractor? Something the commies built? Some kind of monster? Something from outer space?
Kent thinks for a moment, then deflates a little.
No, it's probably something else. It's always something else.
He makes a note on his clipboard. In the background, Dean approaches and hooks up the tractor to his tow truck and hauls it away. Interior Hogarth's house that night. Hogarth comes home. The phone rings and he picks it up.
Hello, this is Hogarth Hughes speaking. Who's calling, please?
Hogarth, honey, I'm really sorry, but I need to work late tonight. There's some cold chicken in the icebox. You can have that and some carrots.
I'm already on it.
He pulls out a box of Twinkies from a cupboard.
Good. I'll make it up to you, okay?
Okay.
I love you, honey. And Hogarth, no scary movies, no late night snacks, in bed by 8. Got it?
Got it.
Cut to the clock is at 8:47, lit up by the ghostly flickering light of the television. We hear creepy music filtered through the tinny TV speaker. Camera drifts to Hogarth, taking a Twinkie from a package. He shakes up a can of whipped cream, jams it into the flat side of the Twinkie, inflating it with additional whipped cream. He crams the Twinkie into his mouth, never taking his eyes off the screen. Interior Hogarth's house living room, night. Lit by the light of a black and white TV, Hogarth has moved furniture and piled up cushions, making a TV-watching fortress. There's a noise outside. Hogarth jumps, listens. Must have been the TV. On the TV, a scientist and his assistant are involved in some kind of drama that includes a murderous brain. Another noise outside, louder this time. Hogarth freezes. That didn't come from the TV. Roar! The TV screen goes white with deafening static.
No, not now.
He smacks the TV, no effect. He cranks the big channel knob. Thunk, thunk, thunk. All channels are static.
Stupid antenna.
Hogarth stares at the screen, gathers his nerve. He hefts his flashlight and wearily heads upstairs. Exterior, the roof, a loft window, night. Hogarth peers out. All quiet, just a whisper of wind. He crawls out onto the roof. His flashlight beam follows the flat TV wire up the roof toward its peak and stops. The antenna is gone, literally torn off the roof.
Gone.
Now Hogarth pauses and cocks his head, listening. In the distance, he hears a heavy boom, and then another. He peers off into the woods. In the distance, he seems to see something moving, just above the level of the trees, something enormous.
Whoa.
Interior Hogarth's bedroom, night. Hogarth hurriedly equips himself. He tapes a flashlight onto his toy BB gun, puts on a football helmet. Finally, he looks in the mirror and salutes himself.
Hogarth Hughes, ready for action.
Exterior, Hogarth's house, night. Hogarth hurries out, runs up to the first massive depression in the grass. Hogarth places his tiny foot beside the car-sized depression and very nearly loses his nerve. He takes a deep breath and hurries into the woods. Interior of the woods, night. A dark night. Fog drifts through trees. Spooky. At the forest's edge, Hogarth looks up, sees broken branches where something entered the woods. Something big. Hogarth darts from bush to bush, follows the trail. Time dissolve. Hogarth creeps on. The forest is now dense. More and more, the tree damage begins to take shape, a tall tunnel formed by broken limbs until Hogarth gasps. The tunnel forms a perfect outline of a huge man-shaped thing. He shivers, considers turning back, but he can't. He creeps on. Hogarth hears a deep, rhythmic humming that vibrates the ground. It sounds strange, alien. He creeps on. Exterior, bushes near the power station, night. The humming is loud. Hogarth slowly parts bushes to see a power station. Danger. High voltage. Tall power lines, towers march through the woods. Sparks snap. Thump. A giant metal foot slams into the ground right in front of Hogarth. He yelps. Thump, thump, thump. 2 huge feet become 2 huge legs. Hogarth looks up. A giant! Made of metal! 40 feet tall, maybe 50. Hogarth can't believe his eyes. The giant stares at the metal towers, makes a metallic grunt that sounds hungry. It reaches out and snaps off a thick piece of metal, pops it in his mouth, chews noisily, and swallows. Burp. Good.
Whoa. It eats metal. Cool.
Hogarth sits, hidden in the bushes, and watches, fascinated, as the giant grazes the metal towers. Sparks fly from now loose, flailing power lines. The giant's eaten all the tower arms. He tugs at a solid metal base. It's stuck. So the giant bends down to eat his way down to a tall metal tower. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Hogarth realizes the giant is chomping toward a mass of thick power cables that hum and spark. Quick intercuts, exterior, interior, Hogarth's house and power station. Night. Annie grabs a flashlight by the door, illuminates the living room. What a mess. And no Hogarth. Kazap! Electricity races up and down the giant's metal. It jerks, flies backward, trailing sparking power lines that wrap around him as he stumbles into a tangle of more power lines. Kazap! It panics, flailing, screeching, tries to free itself, gets more entangled. Annie searches through the house by flashlight for her son, becoming more and more frantic.
Hogarth? Hogarth! Hogarth!
Sparks snap and fly as the giant shrieks in agony. A tower totters and falls, smashing into the ground just as Hogarth jumps clear. Electricity arcs up and down the giant's body. The giant roars, an awful metal sound, falls to its knees, eyes sparking, shorting out. Hogarth looks around, desperate. He's got to save him. He sees a panel, emergency cutoff switch. Hogarth runs toward it, sparks raining all around him. He grabs the panel, locked. He swings his BB gun like a club. Crash! The gun breaks. The panel door pops open. Hogarth grabs the huge switch and throws all his weight against it. Clunk. The sparks slowly die away. Exterior, the deep dark woods, night. The dazed giant looks around, dizzy. He stands, sways, easily snaps free of the wires holding him. His eyes focus down, way down, on Hogarth. The boy and the giant stare at each other for a long time. Now what?
Hogarth!
Hogarth turns, down the hill, through the fog. He sees a light floating through the trees.
Mom!
Hogarth runs down the hill toward the light, then stops, turns back toward the giant. But back where the giant stood seconds before is now only a dangling, sparkling power lines. He's gone. Hogarth stares, baffled. Annie rushes up.
Hogarth!
She grabs him by his shoulders tightly, more out of fear than anger.
What do you think you're doing? Don't you know better than to wander off at night alone? What if something happened to you?
I'm sorry, Mom.
Annie throws her arms around him, hugging him tight, desperately happy to know her boy is safe.
Don't ever do that to me again, Hogarth. I was so scared. I thought I'd lost you.
A long moment passes with Annie just holding him and rocking. Then,
Mom, you won't believe it. Something ate our TV antenna.
Oh, Hogarth.
No, I'm serious. And I went out to see what it was.
But, Hogarth, please.
And it was a giant metal...
Hogarth, stop it! I'm not in the mood. Come on, let's go home.
interior Annie's truck, moments later. Hogarth sits in silence as Annie starts the ignition. As they drive away, Hogarth can't help but look back over his shoulder. Backlit by the moon, he can just make out the outline of the giant, half hidden by the trees, watching them go. Dissolve 2, exterior, the forest trees next morning. The North Main woods, the trees sway, holding their secret deep within. Interior elementary school day. The teacher is quizzing her students. Hogarth is the smallest one in the class. On the chalkboard are written the words Russia and Poland.
All right. And who can name another country that is part of the USSR?
Hogarth raises his hand.
Anyone besides Hogarth?
Hogarth lowers his hand. No response from the others.
Anyone actually listening to me other than Hogarth? Hogarth, are we going to have to move you up another grade? Or should we move the rest of the class down? All right, that's it. Everyone in the class except Hogarth can write me a 5-page essay. Call it Allies and Enemies of the United States of America. It's due tomorrow.
The class groans. A big kid turns around to Hogarth, points at him, and gives him the slit throat sign. Hogarth wilts. Exterior power station day. Workers swarm over the towers, repairing the damage. Kent is there, smoking a pipe as he talks to a foreman.
Yeah, well, sometimes the line will snap if the weather's bad, sure. But for a whole tower to get twisted up like that? No, I tell you, it's got me beat.
And not a single witness.
Afraid not, sir.
Could this have been caused by a giant metal monster, perhaps?
Pardon me, sir?
Nothing. Just repeating a yarn I heard from some fishermen.
Just then, something catches Kent's eye.
Excuse me.
He walks a few steps away and hunkers down beside a portion of rubble. A trapezoidal piece of wood is sticking out from beneath it. Kent pulls it out. It's the handle of a BB gun. On Kent's look, we cut to exterior classroom day. Students pour out of Hogarth's classroom, followed at last by Hogarth, whose full head smaller than any of them. Now Hogarth's face brightens as a few kids his size pass by. Hogarth hurries to catch up with them.
Hey guys.
The kids turn to Hogarth without much enthusiasm.
Hey, Hogarth.
Listen, you're not going to believe it. What happened to me last night? No, I went walking into the forest and I saw this giant.
The kids exchange glances.
It was made out of metal and it tore apart this power station.
For a moment, the kids stare at Hogarth blankly. Finally, one of them speaks.
You know, what I just remembered, I suppose I'm supposed to help people do some stuff right away over in some other place right now.
Oh, those people. Yeah. I'm supposed to do that too.
Nice seeing you, Hogarth.
As the kids walk away, Hogarth hears one of them speak quietly to the other.
Boy, I hope they never skip me a grade.
No, he's gotten really desperate.
A determined look comes over Hogarth's face. We cut to the woods that day. Hogarth marches purposefully into the forest with a camera slung over his shoulder and a sheet of metal in one hand.
Hello? Come out!
Dissolve 2 deeper into the woods a little later. The woods are denser now, with shafts of autumn sun punctuating the darkened light. Hogarth bangs the metal loudly as he walks.
Hey, big metal guy! It's me, the kid who turned off the power for you.
Dissolve to a clearing in the forest. Hogarth sets the metal down, then retreats a safe distance.
Metal! Delicious metal, come and get it!
And settles in behind a large log. He aims the camera and waits. And waits. And waits. This is clearly not as exciting as Hogarth expected. He rubs his eyes, yawns, and lays his head on his arm. The next thing he knows, he's waking up. The afternoon light has given way to the long shadows of early evening. Hogarth looks toward the clearing. The piece of metal is gone. He gasps. He reaches behind him for the camera as he scans the forest left and right. Suddenly, he pauses. His hand is not finding the camera. He turns and looks for it. It's gone. Above him, a flashbulb pops. A moment later, a roll of film drops from the sky and lands at his feet. Hogarth picks up the film and swallows hard. He looks up, a long way up, and sees the giant standing over him, its jaw moving, and crunching sound coming from its mouth.
Ah!
Hogarth runs as fast as his legs will carry him. He covers 20 feet or so when, boom, an enormous metal foot touches down in front of him. He runs faster, but with a single step, the giant covers all the distance between them. Suddenly, whack! Hogarth catches a tree limb across the chin and is sent sprawling to the ground. The giant looms over him. Hogarth sits up, his eyes wide with fear, and shouts at the 50-foot metal monster.
What do you want from me?
The giant sits down with a thud. Then he reaches toward Hogarth with a closed fist, turns it palm upward, and opens his fingers. There in his hand is the 4-foot metal handle with emergency shutoff printed along its length.
The shutoff switch.
Hogarth looks from the handle to the giant in awe.
You saw me save you.
As boy and giant stare into each other's eyes, we cut to interior coffee shop day. Some of the busybodies sit around sipping coffee and gossiping.
Well, in my opinion, it's a woman's obligation to remarry. If not for herself, then for her child.
The busybodies murmur their assent.
Mm-hmm. And do you know, she left her little boy all alone last night. My son heard he went wandering around all by himself near the power plant.
At the mention of this word, a figure at a nearby booth lowers his newspaper and narrows his eyes. It's Kent.
Tisk, tisk. On the very night those power lines came down, the poor child could have been killed.
The busybodies gasp in shock and disapproval.
It just goes to prove my point. She ought to provide him with a father figure, and if she cares about that boy.
She does care about her boy, for your information.
Annie enters, tying on an apron. The busybodies blush and fan themselves nervously.
And thank you so much for your concern. More coffee, anyone?
I'd love some.
Annie turns. Kent gives her his best smile. Annie pours coffee. We see Kent studying with a thoughtful, almost sinister look. He glances at her name tag.
Annie. What a very lovely name.
Annie smiles. Interior woods day. The giant and Hogarth sit facing each other, each staring at the other with curiosity.
So, what are you?
The giant tilts his head curiously but says nothing.
Do you talk?
The giant continues staring, puzzled.
Talk. You know, words. Blah, blah, blah. Like that. Can you do that? Blah, blah, blah.
The giant opens and closes his mouth in imitation of Hogarth. A series of deep metallic rumblings and clangings come out of his mouth.
Well, you get the concept anyway. But we need to work on your vocabulary. Let's see.
Hogarth looks around, sees a rock, and picks it up.
See this? This is called a rock. Rock. Try it. Rock.
Jump.
Rock.
Croc.
Rock.
Rog.
Good. See? This is a rock.
A look of dawning understanding comes over the giant. He looks at the rock in Hogarth's hand.
Rog.
He picks up a nearby boulder.
Rog.
Yes.
The giant pulls a tree out of the ground.
Rog.
No. That is a tree. Tree. Rock. Tree?
The giant's mouth hangs open in awe.
Rog. Tree.
Sound of a truck being crushed in a metal compactor.
Get it? Everything has a different name. Rock, tree.
The giant's mouth hangs open in awe, dissolved too. Same shot, hours later. A very tired Hogarth is still seated, uncomfortably now, in front of a still awestruck giant. The giant picks up a piece of wood.
Branch.
Branch.
The giant picks up another piece of wood.
Yeah, that's a branch too.
Branch. Rog.
Look, we've pretty much covered everything in the forest. And if I don't get home soon, Mom's gonna wonder where I am. You gotta stay here, okay? I'll come back tomorrow.
Hogarth waves to the giant and exits. Now Hogarth hears a boom behind him. He turns to see the giant following him.
And don't follow me either.
The giant continues following happily.
I said don't. Don't follow me. Stay. Go home. I mean it.
Exterior railroad tracks near Hogarth's home. Day. A fog is settling in, and Hogarth leaves the forest and crosses a set of railroad tracks. He points to the house at the bottom of the hill.
Look, that's where I live, okay? I'm going there, and you're not. Understand? So goodbye. Hey.
He turns to see the giant kneeling curiously beside the railroad track. He pokes at them.
Hey, wait a minute.
Too late, the giant bites down on the twin strands of railroad tracks and rips loose like spaghetti.
What do you think you're doing?
The giant freezes, puzzled, long strings of railroad track dangling from his mouth.
Put them back!
Now the giant looks confused and guilty. Ding, ding, ding! The crossing signal blares. Red lights flash. The giant stares at the pretty lights, entranced. Hogarth gasps, looks down at the tracks. He hears a distant whistle blow. Woo woo!
Oh no. Put them back right now!
The giant stares, puzzled. Hogarth groans, runs to a piece of track sticking up and pushes down on it with all his weight. It doesn't budge.
Like this! Help me!
The giant sees Hogarth struggling with the curled tracks, takes one index finger, and helpfully pushes on them. Kablam! They're down.
Good! That's it!
The giant grunts, pleased with himself. Hogarth hears the train, close now, and then he sees the piece of track doesn't meet up.
Put them together! Like this!
Hogarth pantomimes. The giant lines up one track.
Now the other one! Hurry!
Then tries to line up the other side, but it's tricky. The two chewed-on rails stubbornly resist lining up. Finally, the giant gets them close.
Good enough! Come on!
Hogarth takes off, racing like the wind to get out of there. He stops, looks back. The giant is still fussing with the tracks, trying to get them perfect.
No, come on! The train's coming!
The giant is intent on his puzzle. Click, click, almost. Now we see the headlight of a big freight train coming out of the fog. The giant continues to fuss.
The train!
The giant finally snaps the track into place. Click. He grins. A train whistle shrieks. The startled giant looks up as Hogarth hits the dirt and kabloom! Exterior forest near power station, continuous. Kent examines the broken branches. Hears the boom of the train wreck. Resume train crossing continuous. Steam flies. The explosion dies away. Hogarth looks up. The giant is gone. The train, its front end smashed, coasts down the track, brakes squealing. Hogarth looks around, then thump. The giant's head lands beside him. An arm falls here, a leg there. A hand flies down the hill toward Hogarth house.
No.
Hogarth sees the giant lying around in big pieces. He touches the giant's hand gently, a look of pain and sadness on his face. Hogarth whimpers, and then, behind him, the giant's head, still attached to its torso, sits up. Hogarth yelps. The giant's eyes spark, flash, and click on. He looks around, dazed, at his scattered parts.
You're alive!
The torso has one leg and most of one arm attached. The other pieces seem to come alive and scamper around as if confused. An antenna raises out of the top of the giant's head and begins to signal. All of the pieces snap to attention. They crawl toward the giant, who gathers them up in his arm and looks at Hogarth, confused. Just then we hear voices coming from the fog.
Hello? Is anyone out there? Are you all right?
Hogarth squints into the fog.
The train conductor! Oh, we're in trouble now. Okay, look, I've changed my mind. You can follow me home.
He hurries off down the hill, with one-legged giant hopping along beside him. Interior, Hogarth's barn, day. Hogarth enters the barn, with the hopping giant behind him.
You can stay here for now.
The giant takes a seat and sets his body parts down beside him. The giant's arm parts dutifully line up. The arm first. He picks it up and jams it into its socket.
And try to keep quiet, okay? My mom's not too big on me having any pets right now. Shh. Get it?
Exterior, train tracks, continuous. The train engineer and a conductor are examining the tracks in the swirling fog.
Whatever we hit, it was something big. A tractor, maybe.
More like a tank, I'd say.
So, where'd the heck it go?
Out of the fog comes Kent, pipe in hand. He casts a glance at the conductor and the engineer, and then turns and looks down the hill toward Hogarth's house. Interior, Hogarth's house, continuous. Annie enters from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron.
Dinner's been on the table for 20 minutes now. Where have you been all afternoon?
I could tell you, Mom, but I really don't think you'd believe me.
Somehow, I don't doubt that.
Interior, barn, continuous. The giant finishes attaching his leg, and is now altogether save for a missing hand. He looks around the barn for it. Interior, Hogarth's house, that night. Annie and Hogarth sit at the dinner table.
Would you say grace, please?
Hogarth folds his hands together and starts to bow his head when he stops. Behind Annie, the giant's hand crawls across the kitchen floor like a tarantula.
Oh my God!
Annie looks up. Hogarth rolls his eyes to heaven.
Oh my God. We thank you for the food that Mom has put on the front of us and...
Stop. Hogarth jumps up. The curious hand, now standing up on two fingers and reaching for an antique vase, reacts to Hogarth's tone and shrinks back. Hogarth sees Annie staring at him. Again, he covers.
The devil from doing bad things and... Get out of here! Ah, Satan! Go! Go! So that we may live in peace. Amen.
Men? That was really unusual, Hogarth.
I gotta use the bathroom.
Well, okay.
Living room entrance. Hogarth runs up to the hand, blocking it from going to the cellar. He takes one of the enormous fingers with both hands and leads it like a baby elephant to the front door. He opens the door, revealing Kent, startled, about to knock. He smiles his most charming smile. Hogarth gasps, slams the door. He breathes hard, panicking, but when he turns around, the hand is gone. The doorbell rings. Not knowing what to do, Hogarth opens it. Kent's still there, smiling as before.
Hey there, Scout. Kent Mansley. I work for the government. Your parents home?
We're eating.
Oh, what's wrong, Scout? You seem a little jumpy.
Who is it, Hogarth?
Annie has entered the living room. Kent reacts.
Why, hello there. Annie, isn't it? From the diner.
That's right. Mr. Mansley?
Please, call me Kent. So, this is your house. You must be Hobo.
Hogarth.
Hobart.
Hogarth.
Garth.
Yes, indeed. I'm terribly sorry to bother you at this hour, but I'm looking into a little train accident that happened nearby, and my goodness, is there a blue ribbon pie in the oven, or have I died and gone to heaven?
We've just sat down to dinner. Mr. Mansley, would you care to join us?
If it's not too much trouble, I'd be delighted.
He flashes her $1,000 smile. As Annie turns her back to lead them into the dining room, Kent's smile fades into a calculating look. Hogarth sees it all and glares as Kent walks past him. Kent doffs his hat, places it over Hogarth's head as he advances into the living room.
Here, pretend you're a gangster.
The hat covers Hogarth's head. He stands there looking ridiculous. Interior, Hogarth's dining room, a little later. Hogarth, Annie, and Kent are seated at the dinner table. Kent is pouring on the charm to Annie as Hogarth continues to eye him suspiciously. Kent pats his stomach.
Well, it certainly is true what they say. The hospitality in these parts is second to none.
Which parts would those be, sir?
Well, Maine.
I never heard anyone say that about Maine. Have you, Mom?
Hogarth?
Oh, it's all right. He's a bright boy. I like bright boys.
He lights his pipe and studies Hogarth closely.
So, tell me, Hogarth, what do you think of all the goings-on around here lately?
Hogarth plays innocent.
Goings on?
You know, the power plant being destroyed and all.
Careful, Mr. Mansley. He's got a powerful imagination.
Please, call me Kent. I like to be on a first-name basis with first-class chefs.
Annie smiles. Hogarth rolls his eyes.
If it's all right with everybody, I think I'll be excused now.
But you haven't answered my question, Hogarth.
Kent leans in toward Hogarth menacingly.
The power plant. The train. Surely you must have a theory, Hogarth. A bright boy like you. Surely you must have an inkling.
There's a monster out there.
What?
It's a hideous creature, 5 stories tall, and if you go out looking for it, you won't come back alive.
There's a moment of stunned silence. Then,
You're kidding.
Of course he's kidding.
I'm a kid. That's what we do.
suddenly, a toilet flushes upstairs. A puzzled expression comes over Hogarth's face, then Annie's, then Kent's.
Do you have a guest?
No.
Hogarth leaps from his seat and dashes out of the room. Kent raises an eyebrow. Annie looks puzzled. Interior upstairs bathroom. Hogarth yanks open the door, revealing the giant hand, which crouches on the sink as it unrolls a pile of toilet paper into a pile on the floor. Hogarth shuts the door behind him, startling the hand, which leaps to the floor with a thud. Back to the dinner table. Kent and Annie react to the sound and stare at the ceiling.
Excuse me.
She exits. Interior upstairs bathroom. Hogarth labors as he pulls the giant hand toward the open window. The hand resists mildly, like a distracted child. Interior hallway outside the bathroom. Annie stands outside the door. She knocks.
Hogarth? Are you all right?
Interior dining room continuous. Kent turns his attention to the sounds coming from upstairs. He exits. Interior upstairs bathroom. Using his whole body, Hogarth tries to shove the giant hand out the open window. Interior hallway outside the bathroom. Kent has joined Annie, and the two of them listen together.
This sort of thing is why it's so important to really chew your food.
Annie shoots Kent a disapproving look. Interior, upstairs bathroom continuous. With a mighty shove, he finally manages to get the hand out the window. The hand lands with a terrific crash. Hogarth tumbles to the ground, and Annie and Kent burst in through the door to reveal Hogarth, sheepishly standing there in a large pile of unrolled toilet paper.
Good Lord, you've been acting strange lately.
Kent looks from Hogarth to the open window. In the darkness outside, he seems to see a shadowy figure moving in the dark. He turns to Annie and gives her his patented smile.
Do you have a telephone I could use?
Interior, Hogarth's living room, a little later. Kent, hunkered into a corner in an attempt at privacy, speaks into a telephone in a loud whisper. Kent peers around cautiously, making sure he's not observed.
Let me put it bluntly, sir. I'm onto something big in Rockwell, Maine.
What is it this time, Kent?
This time it's a giant that's roaming around the town destroying things.
Uh-huh. Well, you be sure to file us a report and we'll be sure to process it.
Excellent, sir. And in the meantime, I'd like to call in my team.
Your team?
My backup, my support squad. Half a dozen men are all I need to start.
Kent, I know this will come as a shock to you, but we can't just give a team to anyone who asks.
Forgive me for saying so, sir, but I'm not just anyone, and I've never been asked before until now. Sir?
You haven't really found something, have you?
I think I have, sir. Yes.
You think. Do you have proof?
Sir, I've got a feeling about this one. A gut feeling.
That's lovely, Kent. But let me try to explain how this works. If you called to tell me you'd found, say, a giant footprint, I might send over an expert to make a plaster cast of it. If you saw an actual giant with your own eyes, I might even send you the team you're asking for. You go so far as to give me a photograph, I could probably get the U.S. Army over there to Rockwell, Maine. But you tell me you've got a feeling.
All right, then. Fine. You want evidence? I'll get your evidence.
That sounds swell, Kent.
And when I do, I'm going to want a memo distributed. And I'm going to want that memo carbon copied and redistributed. And...
The chief hangs up. As Kent stands with the phone receiver in his hand, a look of dark determination comes over his face. And then we pan through the ceiling above Kent into Hogarth's room. Hogarth also holds a phone receiver with one hand cupped over the mouthpiece. He looks worried. Exterior, Hogarth's house, the next morning. Annie says goodbye to Hogarth at the front door.
Bye, honey. Have a good day at school.
Bye, Mom.
Hogarth pedals his bike away until he's out of sight of the front house, then zips around the side of the house, ditches his bike, and grabs a little red wagon. In a quick montage, Hogarth pulls the wagon around, collecting metal. He finds some cans, an old car muffler, a fallen street sign, etc. Interior, Hogarth's barn, a little later. Hogarth enters and finds the giant sleeping. The giant opens his eyes. He sees a wagon full of metal and looks delighted.
It wasn't easy to fill this wagon, so try not to eat it all at once.
The giant picks the wagon up and dumps its entire contents into his mouth. Hogarth is speechless.
Do you have any idea what it took to find that metal? I scoured the neighborhood. I had to ditch school. I've never done that before.
The giant picks up the wagon and eats that too. Hogarth sighs and takes a seat.
So, now that we've eaten, how shall we spend the rest of our day?
The giant looks at him, not understanding.
Okay, I'll teach you more words.
Hogarth stands up and points at his house.
That is my home. That's where I come from. My home.
Hogarth points to his house. The giant looks at it.
Oh.
Right. Now where is your home?
The giant looks at Hogarth's house, then follows Hogarth's pointing hand and looks at himself. Then a look of deep sadness comes over his face. His shoulders shrug, and his hands turn palm upward in a puzzled gesture.
You mean you don't know where you came from? Wow. You poor guy.
Now we hear a deep rumbling sound. The giant looks down at his stomach hungrily.
I know. Okay, I know a place where it's all you can eat, but not until after dark.
The giant stares at him, uncomprehending.
Let me put it this way.
He points at the window at the sun.
Sun.
So.
When the sun goes down,
Hogarth mimes the sun arcing down the sky to sunset. He taps on Giant's iron belly.
feeding time. Get it? Good.
Hogarth starts to leave, then pauses and turns back to look at the giant.
You're smarter than you look, aren't you? Never mind.
Exterior, Rockwell. In a time lapse, we see the sun arc across the sky and set over picturesque Rockwell, Maine. Exterior, Hogarth's barn, night. Two silhouettes creep into night, one small, one enormous. Exterior, open country, night. A ways off, Hogarth relaxes.
Come on, let's go.
Hogarth starts walking. The giant moves past him. Boom, 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 and with half a dozen strides is almost out of sight.
Stop!
On the horizon, the giant turns, looks puzzled. Now what?
Not that fast. Sheesh. Come back here.
Boom, boom, boom. In 2 seconds, the giant stands at Hogarth's side and looks down at him, confused.
Pick me up, okay?
The giant does as he's told, lowers his huge hand to the ground. Hogarth climbs up on it. The giant carefully raises up his hand, with Hogarth on it. Hogarth grabs onto a finger and points toward the northwest.
Okay, now march.
Hogarth hangs on for dear life as the giant quickly accelerates. Hogarth looks down and gasps. They're really moving. Exterior, power plant, night. Kent is hunting around the power plant with a flashlight, muttering to himself.
Evidence? I'll get your evidence.
He scans the vast expanse of the forest with his flashlight and sighs hopelessly.
Somewhere.
Exterior, hills outside Rockwell, later. Hogarth and the giant are marching along a back road on the hill outside of town. From Hogarth's point of view, it's like a magic carpet ride as the moonlit countryside below sails past his vantage point 50 feet above the ground. Hogarth points at a church steeple.
Church! Church!
Church.
Yes, people pray there. School. Can you say that? School.
School.
School socks.
School socks.
Very good. And that's all you need to know about school.
Exterior, woods. Kent has wandered some distance from the power plant now. His flashlight beam sweeps across the ground.
Nothing. Nothing.
Just then, he hears a noise behind him. He stops, wheels around, and the beam of his flashlight catches a moose. Huge, enormous antlers, looking right at him. The moose snorts. Kent backpedals, stumbles backward into a ditch.
Whoa!
Loudly enough to scare off the moose. He gets up, dusts himself off, shines his flashlight around, and discovers what he's standing on is not a ditch at all, but a giant footprint, perfectly preserved in a patch of dried mud. Kent gasps. The gasp becomes a sound of delight. He begins to laugh. And then a single drop of rain falls on his head. Kent looks up. Another drop falls. The laughter ceases. Exterior woods. Hogarth is still riding around on the giant's shoulder. Rain has begun to drizzle down now.
And that building there is the coffee shop.
Cockjaw.
That's where my mom works. Sometimes she has to stay late to make extra money because, well, my dad's away. You know what a dad is? A father?
Father?
Yeah. Well, it's like me. Only bigger.
He raises a hand indicating someone taller.
He used to take me to those baseball games. Baseball games. This one time, we brought binoculars and we tried to figure out what pitch the catcher was calling. One year we went to go to every home game. I mean, we wanted to.
The giant stops walking and swivels his enormous head to face Hogarth. For a moment, they stare at each other in silence, with the rain pouring down around them. Then Hogarth bursts out, almost angrily.
Oh, what am I even talking to you for? You can't understand a word I'm saying.
The giant continues staring.
Can you?
The giant speaks, and somewhere within the metal clanging of his voice, there seems to be a note of sympathetic sadness.
Father.
Hogarth sighs and pats the giant on the side of his head.
Well, I guess it's better than talking to myself.
The giant looks pleased by this. They continue on their way. Exterior woods. Kent, soaked to the bone, is sitting on the edge of the giant footprint, which has become soggy, nondescript mess.
God hates me.
He pulls out his pipe and tries to light it, but his soggy matches won't strike.
Damnation! Can't a guy get a break around here?
Suddenly, the rain lets up. Kent looks surprised, then pleased. He lights his pipe. Then he turns to heaven again.
Thank you. Wah!
He does a huge double take as he looks up to see the giant's smiling head looming above him. The giant picks up Kent's metal flashlight, eats it, and in 3 strides is gone from sight, leaving the terrified and exhilarated Kent behind. Under the giant's chin, Hogarth peeks out, breathing hard.
That can't be good.
Exterior Dean's junkyard, night. A metal graveyard, sprawling as far as the eye can see.
This is it.
The giant's metal hand sets Hogarth into frame.
All you can eat.
The giant surveys the metal in all directions, moaning happily as he spies a huge stack of cars. He selects one and slowly, carefully bites into it. He selects another car, picks it up and bites into it like a gourmand tasting a fine chocolate. He tastes another, causing the car horn to blast.
Shh! Turn it off! Turn it off!
The giant looks around nervously, helplessly, beginning to panic. He tries shaking it, then sitting on it, but nothing works. The horn is stuck. Hogarth looks back toward the house, at the far end of the junkyard. A light goes on in a little house. Finally, the giant takes a monster chomp and snaps the car in half. The horn strangles into silence. Exterior junkyard house. Dean reaches the door, opens it. A gasping, out-of-breath Hogarth stands on his doorstep. Dean studies Hogarth for a moment, then breaks into a smile.
Hey, I know you. Squirrel Boy.
Hogarth.
By night, known as Hogarth. Got it. Well, come inside, kid. Hell, it's raining out there, isn't it?
Interior Dean's house. Jazz is playing on the hi-fi of his distinctly bohemian pad. Dean presses an espresso.
Listen, you're not gonna call my mom, are you? She doesn't know I'm out. I could get in trouble.
Don't worry, kid. It's not my style to report a guy to the authorities.
He brings over 2 espresso cups and hands one to Hogarth.
Espresso for me, Bosco for you. I thought you'd dig a little cup.
Hogarth looks pleased.
Thanks.
My name's Dean. I'm nobody. And you are?
Hogarth. I'm kind of a nobody too.
So what brings you all the way out here, Hogarth? You writing some crazy inspiration?
I've been writing something, all right.
The record finishes, and in the silence, loud crunching noises from outside. Dean jumps up.
Did you hear that?
He grabs a crowbar, runs to the door. Hogarth jumps up.
No, wait. Stop.
Exterior, Dean's home, night. The door flies open. Dean leaps out, yells.
Who's out there?
He hears a metallic gasp. He looks up, and sees the gargantuan giant, tailpipe sticking out of its mouth, frozen, a guilty, caught look on its face. Dean yelps.
My God. Run, kid, run!
It's okay.
But the heroic Dean seizes Hogarth and turns to duck inside, which the giant immediately interprets as a threat and slams his massive hand in front of the door, blocking it as Hogarth tries to break free of Dean to explain.
The giant isn't... Let go!
As the giant grabs Dean, hoisting him high in the air.
Don't squash him! Do not squash...
The giant stops, looks down at Hogarth, puzzled.
Squash him. Good boy. His name is Dean. We like Dean. Dean good. Put him down.
Dean.
The giant grins at Dean. He sways, shocked, overwhelmed.
Dean, meet my friend of mine. Dean, giant. Giant, Dean.
The giant grins and kind of waves. Dean stands there, pale, completely overwhelmed.
More coffee?
Exterior, Dean's house sometime later. Dean stares, stunned at the huge, impassive giant.
So, where'd he come from?
He doesn't remember. He's like a little kid.
Little? Huh. Yeah.
He needs food and shelter.
Dean stares at Hogarth in expressionless shock. Then slowly stands, pours out his coffee, goes inside, locking the door behind him. Same shot 37 minutes later. The blinds have been pulled. Hogarth stands at Dean's front door, pleading.
You got plenty of room here. This place is perfect.
Go away.
I can have him push the door down. You know I can.
Pause. The door opens and there's Dean, looking annoyed.
Hogarth, I can't hide it here.
Him. Not it. Him.
Whatever. You don't even know where he's from or what the hell he is.
He's my friend.
Dean stares at immovable Hogarth. Behind him, dawn breaks.
Yeah. What am I? Am I your friend? Come bring some Frankenbot out of the state, with out-of-state plates over here. Make him change my tune. Don't like that jazz. God, I'm tired.
Dean gives up, stands, worn out, exhausted.
So? He can stay?
Tonight? Tomorrow? I don't know. Figure something out.
Dean stumbles toward his home. Hogarth grins and looks at the now tired giant, yawning.
Let's get you tucked in.
Exterior, Dean's junkyard, night. Hogarth smiles to himself as he watches the giant sleep, now covered in a layer of junk, a camouflage comforter. And then he hears a beeping noise. Hogarth looks up and sees an army plane flying toward him. The beeping gets louder. Hogarth realizes it's coming from the giant. Suddenly, whirr! A panel on the giant's right arm slides open. A strange device pops out and starts tracking the plane overhead. Hogarth panics. As the plane comes nearer, the beeping becomes more incessant. The strange device tracks the plane. It looks very retro, advanced, and scary. The giant starts moaning, thrashing in his sleep, as if caught in a bad dream. Suddenly, he wakes up and ka-chunk! The device withdraws. The plane disappears over the trees. Hogarth looks at the giant, stunned. The giant, unaware, looks at Hogarth, puzzled.
It's okay. Go back to sleep. It was just a bad dream.
The giant nods, comforted, and drops off into sleep. Hogarth walks away deeply troubled. Interior Hogarth's house. Hogarth creeps upstairs to his room, pulls back the covers, and is just about to dive in when Annie enters, spies Hogarth up and dressed.
You're up already?
Hogarth tiredly replaces the bed covers.
Just making the bed.
That's nice. Come downstairs. I have a surprise for you.
Interior Hogarth's house living room. An exhausted Hogarth shuffles downstairs and into the kitchen. Interior kitchen. He sits down sleepily at the breakfast table and then gasps. Sitting across from him, reading the paper and looking quite at home in a fatherly way is...
Kent?
Morning, sport. Sleep well?
He feels Kent's knowing eyes boring into him.
Mom!
Annie appears, carrying a plate of waffles. She sets a plate down and leans in toward Hogarth, beaming.
Isn't it wonderful, Hogarth? We finally got a boarder.
Oh no.
Kent looks at his watch.
You know, I meant to wake up bright and early this morning, but from the look of those waffles, I'm still in bed dreaming.
Oh, Mr. Mansley. Oh, Kent.
Kent and Annie share a meaningful look. Hogarth looks ill.
I'm not very hungry.
He exits. Kent watches him go, then picks up the fork that Hogarth was holding and surreptitiously drops it in a little plastic evidence bag. Interior coffee shop day. Hogarth strolls in and takes a seat at the counter next to a man reading a newspaper. A bored waitress approaches.
Chocolate malted, please. I've never been in here. Mom says the coffee's weak and they put meat extender into the hamburger.
It ain't the diner, Sparky. But it's more private.
The man lowers the paper to reveal his face. It's Dean. He glances around cautiously to make sure they're not being watched.
So, your friend's got quite the appetite.
Yeah. When I found him, he was trying to eat the power station.
So where's he come from?
He doesn't know.
You can talk to him?
Kinda. He can't say a lot of words yet, but he understands things pretty good.
I wonder if he had anything to do with the meteor that splashed down here the other day. And then, maybe he was a meteorite.
That's what I was thinking. He came from outer space.
Maybe. Or maybe he was launched into space from Earth.
Hey, maybe the communists made him. You know, in one of their secret labs.
Or maybe we built him in one of ours. Our government has secrets too, you know.
Or maybe he comes from underground, you know? Like he's this undiscovered species that evolved from minerals or something while we were evolving out of monkeys.
Maybe, kid. And again, maybe the monkeys evolved from us.
Dean laughs and puts his hands behind his head and strikes a philosophical pose.
I wish we knew why he was here.
I wish I knew why I was here.
Hogarth puts his hands behind his head and strikes a philosophical pose too. He seemed to be enjoying the adult conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, nobody really knows where they came from, why they're here, where they're going. I mean, we believe, we hope, but we just don't know.
Right.
And some cats, that scare them, you know?
You're telling me.
They race around, they play games, they chase money, chase power.
Just so they won't have to wonder what life's all about.
Exactly. Hey.
Dean lifts up his coffee cup, saluting Hogarth. They sit in silence for a moment, happily contemplating the universe. Interior, dark laboratory. As Kent looks on, an agent in a lab coat studies a spoon, now dusted with white powder, under a microscope. After a moment, he looks up and gestures at the BB gun, also dusted with powder, which lies on the table nearby. The agent turns to the man in the shadow, standing over him.
It's the same fingerprint.
A match is struck. We follow it up to the man's pipe already in his mouth. As the match flares, it lights up Kent's face. He smiles diabolically. Interior coffee shop day. Hogarth contentedly slurps the last of his malted through a plastic straw. Dean works on a slab of apple pie.
Hey, Dean,
Yeah.
what is life all about? For you, I mean.
For me, well, I guess I'd like to prove there's something to me, you know? They say his soul's part angel, part monster. Sometimes I think life is a chance to set that angel free.
The giant looks like a monster, but inside he's good. I can tell.
I hope you're right, kid. The world can use an angel of that size.
You won't tell anyone about him, will you?
Nah, he's an outsider. I got a soft spot for outsiders.
Exterior Hogarth's house day. Hogarth comes riding home on his bike. He parks it at the side of the house and starts to go inside, then hesitates. He holds out a hand and feels a drop of rain, looks up at the clouds, then takes his bike and wheels it toward the barn instead. Exterior barn day. Hogarth opens the barn door and gasps. Hogarth's point of view? Kent and the lab coat agents sit in a small, impoverished lab table. Nearby are 4 other agents in suits and ties, studying maps, monitoring listening equipment, generating artist conceptions of the giant. They look up, aghast.
Mom!
Interior kitchen a little later. Kent and the agents sit stoically at the breakfast table. Annie stands facing them with folded arms. Hogarth stands nearby, scowling.
So, you work for the government?
Right.
A long pause.
Our government?
Of course. Annie, please, let me explain. Every once in a while, things happen to people that just can't be rationalized in a conventional way. The Unexplained Phenomena Department was created to respond to the bizarre, the strange, the, well, unexplainable events that happen every day all across this great land, from the mountains to the prairies to the oceans.
Do you actually work in Washington?
Yes, indeed. Washington, D.C.
As Kent begins to wax on about his work, we cut to flashback. Washington, D.C., morning. Kent strides briskly through the crisp morning air, making his way many equally ambitious go-getters on their way to do the nation's work. Familiar Washington monuments fill the background.
If you're of a mind to be a mover and a shaker, it's the only place to be.
Flashback, government building, lobby continuous. Kent enters an impressive government building. While most of the workforce heads up the massive marble stairs, Kent heads down the narrow stairs off to the side.
A place where an individual with pluck and ambition can really get ahead.
Flashback, government building, sublevel, narrow hallway. Kent walks down the endless row of identical doors, stopping in front of one labeled Unexplained Phenomena Department. Kent unlocks the door and enters a sparse windowless office, not much larger than the desk in the center of it.
Safe in the knowledge that the vast resources of the U.S. government are at one's disposal.
Flashback, Kent's office. Kent sits idly at his desk, evenly spacing a row of sharpened pencils across the desktop. Clearly, there's no action here.
Although we're simply inundated with calls, we limit ourselves to only the most demanding cases. It's a challenge. I won't deny it.
The phone finally rings and Kent seizes it hungrily. Flashback, Appalachian Mountains Day. A couple of slack-jawed yokels gape up as Kent pulls a large deflated balloon down from a tree. U.S. Weather Service stenciled on its side. Kent displays it to them, glaring. They grin sheepishly.
I could tell you many strange stories, but unfortunately, all of them are classified.
Resume Annie's kitchen, Kent and Company. Kent leans back in his chair, his story told.
I hope that helps to calm some of your worries, Annie. And you, too, Hogarth. Hogarth?
The agents all look around. Hogarth is nowhere to be seen.
You're supposed to be watching him.
The agents hustle out of the room.
For his own good, of course.
Exterior, enormous gates of iron, day.
Open the blast doors.
The massive gates open. Hogarth, wearing a space helmet and carrying a plastic ray gun, walks through. Widened to reveal the gates are actually the giant's 2 hands.
Level 2. Commander Thresher to base. I found the escape vehicle.
The giant's hand takes him up to a junk car atop a big junk pile. Hogarth climbs in, grabs the wheel.
Main engines. 1, 2, and 3. Blast off.
The giant grabs the car and flies it around. Angle on Dean's house. Dean sits on his porch, watching. Back to the giant. Hogarth's face compresses from the G-forces. He looks green.
We're landing. We're landing.
From his porch, Dean watches, grins. The car lands. Hogarth stumbles out, dizzy. The giant chortles.
Only one creature could create such destruction. The hideous man-eating killing machine. Robotron!
Hogarth waits. The giant just stands there, staring at him.
Robotron!
Roar.
No, no, no! Bigger!
Roar.
Good! Okay, Robotron, take this!
He whips his toy gun out, aims it at the giant, and pulls the trigger. It whines and sparks. Suddenly, the giant freezes. His eyes lock on the gun, and a reddish glow comes into his eyes.
When I zap you, you're supposed to fall down, remember? Like I told you.
With his eyes still glowing, the giant reaches both hands, zombie-like, toward Hogarth.
Hey!
The hands begin closing around Hogarth, who is beginning to panic.
Wait a minute! It's me, Hogarth!
He sees that the giant is staring at his gun and quickly slips it behind his back.
Your friend!
The giant freezes. The red fades from his eyes. Then he looks at his hands, which are closed threateningly around Hogarth.
Hogarth.
Hey, it's okay. I know you didn't mean it. But maybe that's enough playing for now.
Hogarth gets up and heads for Dean's house. As he turns away from the giant, we see that he wears a look of deep concern. Exterior, Dean's house. Hogarth takes a seat on the porch beside Dean, who is scanning the hills with binoculars.
You weren't followed, were you?
Yeah, it's not too hard to lose those guys.
Don't get cocky. Even guys in suits can learn.
Why do they just want to get him anyway? Just because he's different?
That's generally all it takes.
They don't even know him. And they just assume he's dangerous.
They stare out at the giant as he opens a car hood, plucks out the engine, eats it, and throws away the shell.
Yeah, I just hope they're wrong.
What do you mean?
Look, I saw what happened out there just now. When you drew the gun on him, the look that went into his eyes.
It's not his fault. He can't help it.
That's what worries me. You don't know what he's capable on. On the surface, he may be gentle, but inside he could be a killer.
The giant looks up curiously. Hogarth shushes Dean.
Don't use that word around him.
Why not?
Because he cares. I can't explain it, but he cares about what he is. He's getting so he can understand all kinds of stuff now. If he hears you use that word around him.
Okay, I'm just saying. Be careful. So, have we got a plan? I mean, he can't stay here forever.
I know.
The longer he stays, the better their chances are of finding him. We got to get him out of here, Hogarth.
How? He's a little too big to smuggle out in a suitcase.
We could do it in pieces.
You mean take him apart?
You think he'd go for it? I got a junk truck. I'm always hauling crap. I have a dozen trips here and there. I mean, we could take him up to Canada. There's places up in the Yucatan, old mining sites. No one around, plenty of metal. He could roam the earth, live off the land. Sounds pretty good, actually.
Hogarth thinks about it.
When?
Sooner the better. Tonight, if possible.
Tonight? I only just met him a couple days ago. At least wait till tomorrow.
Dean looks at the giant, lounging peacefully in the junkyard.
All right. I guess one more day won't make a difference.
Interior, Hogarth's bedroom, night. R&B blares Little Richard. Hogarth draws pictures of the giant. They're good. He hides the pictures from view, carefully covering them with a book before exiting the room. Interior, kitchen. Hogarth sharpens some pencils with a sharpener mounted on the inside of the broom closet. Interior, Hogarth's bedroom. Hogarth returns, goes to his desk, stops, stunned. The giant drawings are uncovered. Eyes wide, Hogarth looks around his room. Everything looks slightly askew, as if it's been searched. Hogarth's neck hair tingles. He stares at his bedroom door, slowly pulls it towards him, revealing Kent standing behind it, smiling.
Surprise.
Kent, what are you doing in my room?
He holds up a 45 RPM record still in its sleeve.
Just being friendly. And all that implies. I know how you kids like rocky roll, so...
He goes to the phonograph and puts it on the platter.
Pat Boone?
Yeah, baby. It's got that jungle rhythm, but you can understand the words.
Thanks.
Kent starts to undulate awkwardly to the music.
Come on, Hogarth, let's do the happy monkey. You know the one I mean.
Hogarth edges toward the door. Kent follows, still dancing.
Friends, Hogarth, that's what we ought to be. But friends don't keep secrets from each other.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't? Well, let me tell you a little story. Your mom says you like him.
Kent steps in front of the doorway, his smile now chilling.
Once there was a boy who walked into a forest. He wanted to take a picture of a metal-eating giant, but lo and behold, the giant ate his camera. All up.
Hogarth looks baffled.
How did you know?
Because in the process, the giant snapped a picture of himself. And the little boy brought the film home.
Hogarth lunges for the roll of film.
Give it back!
Kent daggles the film over Hogarth's head for a moment, then drops it into Hogarth's hands. Hogarth looks at it.
Empty.
Kent slips a black and white photo from his coat and hands it to Hogarth. It shows the giant's face, its mouth wide open.
The army arrives in 24 hours, Hogarth. Just thought you'd like to know.
Kent dances out of the room. Hogarth stares helpless. Interior, Hogarth's house, living room, night. Kent puffs on his pipe as Annie knits. Hogarth sits in a chair studying them. Kent breaks the silence.
Well, isn't this a fine way to spend an evening? We're like one big happy family.
Hogarth looks up, staring darkly at Kent.
You're not family. And when my dad finds out you sat in his chair, he'll hunt you down like a dog.
Hogarth!
Kent turns to Annie. He makes a half-hearted gesture of getting out of his chair.
I'm sorry. Should I?
No, don't get up. My husband, Hogarth's father, he was an Air Force pilot in Korea. A casualty.
He's coming back.
Ignoring Hogarth, Kent puts on a look of deep sympathy and turns to Annie.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're not.
Hogarth!
But Mom, this guy doesn't care about anything. Cats like him race around, play the game, chase money, chase power. But he keeps buttering you up so you won't see that.
Hogarth, that is enough. I think you owe our guest an apology.
Oh, now, there's no need for that. Hogarth is right in a way. I'm certainly ambitious. Yes. Ambitious, career-minded, stable.
He's doing it again.
Kent gives Hogarth a patronizing smile.
Hogarth, I would have thought a good American boy like yourself would have more respect for the work I do. The world has become a dangerous place, you know. The balance of power is delicate. I gather information, and the side that has the information is the side that will win.
Hogarth fixes his eyes on Kent with an intensity that's unnerving.
They say the soul is part angel and part monster. One look at you and I know the monster is going to win.
That's it. You either apologize or go right up to bed right now.
Hogarth throws up his hands and marches out of the room.
Honestly, I don't know where he's getting these wild ideas. He's started to talk. He's starting to talk like that beatnik.
Beatnik?
Interior Hogarth's bedroom, night. Hogarth is in bed, the lights are out. Annie appears in his doorway, silhouetted by the light in the hall. She lingers for a moment, thoughtful.
Have you been out at that junkyard, Hogarth?
Which junkyard?
The only junkyard. Dean's junkyard.
If I had, would you be mad at me?
No. Tell him hi for me.
She exits. Hogarth stares at the ceiling and sighs. Exterior town next day. A convoy of army vehicles is pouring into town. Kent watches the mentor, euphoric. He glances at his watch and, remembering an appointment, rushes off. Interior coffee shop day. An army general sits at the booth, studying a map. Kent sits across from him, positively glowing with pride. General?
Hills and valleys and woods and ravines. Lots of places to hide around here.
Yes, it's remarkable, isn't it, sir?
Kent looks around at the various coffee shop busybodies and speaks loudly for their benefit.
That one man working alone could have single-handedly found a monster in a place like this.
The busybodies coo and murmur amongst themselves.
Hard to know where to start, really.
Well, sir, perhaps I can be of some help in that regard. You see, I've had my eye on an odd little boy who seems to be connected to the creature in question, and I have reason to believe he's been spending some time at a local scrapyard.
From behind the counter, Annie looks sharply at Kent, finally understanding his attentions.
Can you take me there?
But of course, sir. When
Loudly
a five-star general needs my help, I'm only too eager to oblige.
Annie comes by and refills their coffee.
I'm the mother of that odd little boy.
Oh, yes.
And if you're going up to the junkyard, I'm coming along.
Interior Dean's studio day. Dean is welding a sculpture of a hooded executioner. Instead of an axe, the executioner yields a flag. Part hammer and part sickle, part stars and stripes. There's a knock at his door.
In.
In walks the general and Kent, followed by a few soldiers. Annie comes in last. Dean takes off his welding goggles and studies all the uniforms.
I assume you're here for the Lenny Bruce albums?
Watch the wisecrack, beating it. We represent America.
Hey, man, we all represent America, man.
Sir, my name is General Shannon Rogard. We have reason to believe you are harboring a large creature whose interests run counter to those of the United States. Do you deny it?
Hey, man, if cats need to flop, my pad spring's eternal.
The general and the soldiers exchange puzzled glances. One of them leans toward the general and speaks in hushed tones.
As I understand it, sir, a cat is a member of the counterculture.
What rank?
Well,
As the general and soldiers continue to confer, Annie steps forward and speaks to Dean.
Is Hogarth here? Is he all right? These people say he may be in some kind of trouble.
He's not here, Andy, but he's all right. Believe me, I wouldn't let anything happen to that little guy.
Annie and Dean share a look. Kent sees this and loses his cool.
All right, I've had enough.
He turns to the soldiers.
You and you, start rummaging around. Tip some tables over, kick open doors, break stuff. You know the drill.
Kent claps his hands. The soldiers don't move.
We all hear you yakking, Daddy-O, but no one's listening.
Kent seethes.
Not yet. Not yet.
Annie looks from one to the other, comparing. Interior woods, day. The giant strolls through the forest with Hogarth on his shoulder.
I know this is hard for you to understand, but, well, it might be a real long time before we get to hang out like this again.
The giant is oblivious to anything but the beauty of the day. He turns his face up towards the sun, as it is ours through the trees. Birds are singing. All is peaceful.
Yeah, it is beautiful, isn't it?
Through a patch in the trees, they spot a deer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deer. Deer.
Deer.
The giant takes a step toward it. It darts away. Hogarth points.
That way.
Full of childlike curiosity, the giant follows, and a game of hide-and-seek begins. Hogarth laughs happily as they dart in and out of the trees. At last, he finds the deer grazing in a clearing. The giant is fascinated.
Shh. Let's get closer.
The giant tries to sneak nearer, leaning on a pair of tall trees which begin to teeter. He grabs one, and as he quietly pushes it back into place, the other crashes to the ground. The treetop lands near the deer, who bolts away from it and directly toward the giant, almost into the giant foot. The deer stops, puzzled by the strange metal obstacle. He looks up, right to the giant's face. The giant smiles, which spooks the deer, who darts off in the other direction. The giant reaches out and catches it, in one huge hand, like a kid trapping a butterfly.
You caught it!
The giant laughs and opens his hand. The deer lies motionless. The giant and Hogarth look stunned. The giant tenderly lays the deer down on the ground, kneels, and nudges the deer with a big finger. Nothing. It doesn't move.
It's dead.
Dead.
There is a long silence. The giant nudges the deer again.
Don't do that! It's dead, okay? That means it's not gonna move. It's gone. And it's not coming back, understand? It's not ever gonna come. It's not ever going to come back.
It begins to snow softly. From high above, through the trees, the boy and the giant stare down at the lifeless deer. They bow their heads in sorrow. Exterior junkyard later. The snow falls harder now. The depressed giant sits on a hillside, snow piling up on his motionless bulk, staring into the forest. Dean and Hogarth watch him, worried. Dean.
Mute.
There we go. That's bad. That's very bad. The army's on its way. We got to get him out of here.
He doesn't know how to think about it.
We got to talk to him. We got to get him out of here.
Me? I don't know about this stuff.
You know as much as anyone does, kid. I mean, he trusts you. Speak from your heart. I mean, that's the only chance we got.
Hogarth looks at the giant.
All right. I'll try.
He walks over to the giant, climbs up his leg, and sits on his knee. The giant turns and looks at Hogarth with weary eyes. Hogarth sighs.
It wasn't your fault.
No response from the giant.
Things die. It's a part of life.
Hogarth reaches for the overhanging branch of a nearby tree and picks two leaves, a brown one and a green one. He holds up the green leaf.
Life
He holds up the brown leaf.
and death.
He gestures at the forest around him.
They're part of the way things are.
He points at the giant and shakes his head.
You didn't make it that way. Do you understand? It's not your fault.
The giant gazes at Hogarth for a beat, then takes the leaves from the boy's hands and studies them. Hogarth hops down and stands by Dean.
What's he doing?
He's thinking. It's not an easy thing to understand.
Dean looks at Hogarth with empathy. Interior, the Army's temporary command center, day. Kent is on the phone with the chief. He's visibly pale. Intercut the following with Chief in Washington, D.C.
But sir, you're making a big mistake. We're close. I have a real gut feel.
Mansley, if I hear about your gut feelings one more time, I'm going to vomit through the phone lines. The press has got a hold of this thing, and now I'm a laughingstock for spending tax dollars on your idiotic plan. I'm pulling those troops out of this minute before my career is as dead as yours.
The chief slams the receiver down so hard it hurt Kent's hand and mane. Exterior, Dean's junkyard, day. The giant still ponders. Just then, a pair of army planes comes into view. We hear a beeping sound.
Oh no.
What is it?
The panels on the giant's arms slide open, and the strange tracking device pops out again.
I was going to tell you.
The giant looks confused as another panel opens and what appears to be a rocket launcher pokes out, tracking the planes. As they pass, the weapons recede and the panels close. The giant looks distressed.
Good God, Hogarth, he's armed? How could you keep this from me?
Would you have let him stay?
No!
That's why.
Oh, man, Hogarth. This is serious. What are you doing? He's not some kind of a lost puppy, man. He's a weapon.
Dean is pointing at the giant now. Hogarth sees the giant is watching Dean with eyes wide.
Dean. Shh.
He's a machine, Hogarth. He is designed to kill.
The giant stands up. He looks at himself and then at Dean. And then, with a terrible roar, he runs away. Dean and Hogarth share a look of panic.
Oh, this is bad.
We gotta find him.
Come on.
They run for his house. Exterior, Rockwell, same time. Kent watches in despair as the army pulls out of Rockwell, taking his credibility and hopes for the future with them. Exterior, countryside, day. The giant wanders through the falling snow, deeply disturbed and depressed, not knowing or caring where he's going. Interior, Dean's garage. He wheels a motorcycle out. Hogarth jumps in the sidecar. Exterior, the deep woods, day. The giant blindly marches on, agitated, grieving. Exterior, Dean's motorcycle moving, day. Dean and Hogarth speed into the driving snow, following the giant's quickly filling footprints.
He's heading right for the town.
Exterior, the outskirts of town, evening. Filling the screen, a woman screams, loud. Reverse, the giant peers down at a tiny woman. Her tiny scream barely heard from his viewpoint. He waves meekly. Back to, the woman screams, runs in, slams the door. The giant wonders. He looks behind him. Is something back there? Nope. He shrugs. He wanders out. On, the streets largely deserted. The snow falls heavily. Looking in a second-story window, a toddler watches a TV monster movie. Bored, he looks out the window and sees a real monster. He blinks, isn't sure whether to be scared or not. The giant sees the kid staring at him. The giant smiles and waves. The kid grins, waves back. The kid hollers in silence. Two older kids join him at the window, look out, see a waving giant. They look stunned and wave back. One yells a silent, Mom! Mom appears at the window. The giant waves. She turns white, screams silently, yanks down the window shade. The giant blinks, disturbed. Bow, wow, wow. He looks down. A tiny terrier barks ferociously at him, then nips his foot. He yelps in pain.
Rock?
The giant reaches down for the terrier. It yipes and runs away. The giant looks disappointed. He looks up. Nearby, several villagers stand in front of the falling snow, staring up at him. He waves. The villagers run inside, slam their doors. The giant moans, depressed. With Dean and Hogarth moving, in the snow, Dean drives flat out. In the side cart, Hogarth hangs on for his dear life. They blow past Kent, going the other way. Kent slams on the brakes, his suspicions aroused, and hangs a U-turn, almost colliding with the last of the troops. Their truck screeches to a stop. Kent jumps out, waving his arms as he runs up to the driver.
Stop! I know this will sound crazy, but...
The middle of town. A scene out of a 50s horror movie. A dozen villagers run screaming from a huge giant behind them. But this giant just stands there. His shoulders droop, heartsick. He realizes that everyone is terrified of him, and he doesn't understand why. If the Iron Giant could cry, he would. Sirens sound in the distance, getting closer. The giant turns around and heads back out of town, toward the junkyard and home. Shriek! Right in front of him, a woman screams, her hands fly up, releasing her baby carriage, which rolls right up against the giant's feet. The giant looks down and sees an infant inside. The baby coos and waves at the giant, who grins and waves back. At last, a friendly face. 2 police cars screech up. 2 cops leap out and fumble their guns. The mother screams.
It's got my baby!
The cops stare, stunned, at the giant towering over the baby. 1 cop radios for help. Annie exits the diner, sees the scene, joins the crowd, terrified, watching. The giant seems to be making faces at the baby. The fascinated giant chortles and leans way down to look closer at the giggling infant, which looks threatening to onlookers. The mother screams.
Shoot it!
Alarmed, the cops raise their guns. Dean and Hogarth screech up on Dean's motorcycle.
No!
The cops fire. The bullets bounce off the giant's side. The giant turns. What was that? His eyes zero in on the cops' guns and turn bright red. With heavy machinery whir, a futuristic weapon springs up out of the giant's right arm, which he instinctively swings toward the police car. Cops and soldiers leap aside as a green ray shoots and kaboom! The police car explodes in an unearthly blast and sends a blue fireball roiling into the sky. The giant's arm jerks round, catching the helpless cops and soldiers in its crosshairs. But the giant's eyes suddenly clear. Alarmed, he knocks his arm aside before it fires. Kathoom! The ray rips through the air, destroying a grove of trees on the far side of town. The giant recoils, horrified by his own destructive power. He forces the gun back into his arm and rushes away, vanishing into the night. Dean and Hogarth exchange glances. They turn to go and run straight into Kent and a group of soldiers. They've seen the whole thing, and Kent has never looked more smug.
Seize them.
The soldiers do as they're told, grabbing Dean and Hogarth.
Hey, get your hands off! Let go of me, you're hurting me, help!
As they pass through the frame, we see that Kent is holding a microphone and recording Hogarth's protestations on a tape recorder. He smiles. Exterior forest dusk. The giant hides, anxious and watchful. Then he hears a distant sound echoing through the trees. A voice.
Let go of me! You're hurting me, help!
That's all the giant needs to hear. He's off, moving swiftly through the dark forest in the sound's direction. Exterior Rockwell dusk. The giant moves to the edge of the forest and pauses distrustfully. The town is oddly still. Hogarth's voice can still be heard calling for help. Then the giant spies Hogarth, gagged and tied to the top of a radio tower on the roof of a 5-story cross building, the tallest in Rockwell. He squirms. The moment the giant starts to move toward the building and the army, camouflaged, opens fire. Suddenly, the giant is being hit from all sides. Rifles, machine guns, bazookas, armor, which we haven't seen before, slides out of his body and locks into a covering around him. A stray shot takes out a chunk of the base of the tower that Hogarth is tied to, and it starts to topple. The giant sees this and rushes directly into the line of fire to shield Hogarth from being crushed by the tower. The giant pulls the tower loose, sliding Hogarth into his metal hand.
He's got a boy! Hold your fire!
It's killed the boy. Don't let it get away.
A wall of artillery closes the entrance to the town and begins to fire away at Giant. The giant looks towards the sea, but sees armed ships out there, their guns pointed toward land. Once again, various weapons begin to pop out of the giant's arms. He presses them back in. He turns and runs straight at the wall of artillery and jumps over it. Everyone stares, gape-jawed, then quickly tries to swivel their guns in the opposite direction. But the giant is already gone. The general calls to the Air Force.
This is General Rogard. Code Red. I repeat, Code Red.
Countryside moving with the giant. The giant, carrying Hogarth, hustles through the snow, slipping occasionally, but moving with surprising swiftness. Behind them, jet fighters appear on the far horizon. And in the moment they're on top of them, strafing the ground with machine gun fire, launching rockets, etc. The giant bursts through the trees and suddenly finds himself in a 2-lane highway, about to step on cars and the terrified people driving them. The giant sidesteps to avoid them, losing his balance at full run and slamming into the snowy ground, sliding thunderously for the better part of a mile and cutting a very large swath through whatever happens to be in the way. Exterior, Rockwell Street, day. Annie struggles with 2 agents who hustle her into a car.
Let me go! I have to get my son! What's going on?
I'm afraid that's classified, ma'am.
Classified? What do you mean?
She tries the door. It won't open. She pounds on the window.
Open this door! Hey!
And then she notices she's not alone in the car. Beside her is Dean, who sits with his head in his hands. Exterior, countryside. The giant tries to swat at the fighter planes as they fly overhead, but they are just out of his reach. He grabs a fallen tree, swinging it like a club, clipping off most of one fighter's wings. The pilot ejects just before the jet plows into the earth, bursting into a fireball. More and more fighters appear, too many, blasting away at the giant. He veers toward a high cliff and jumps into the sea. Underwater, continuous. Imagine a 5-story building smashing into the sea, and you might conjure the explosion of bubbles caused by the giant. Only moments before the fighters swoop the waters of the surface, strafing it with machine gun fire. The bullets pull up short, impotently. The giant feels safe. Then he looks to his hand. Hogarth is drowning. The giant is stuck. He can't surface because of the jets, but he can't let Hogarth drown. He reaches up with his other hand, cupping it above the water's surface, and pulls it down below, allowing Hogarth to breathe in the pocket of air. Just then, a sub catch the giant in their sights. They launch torpedoes. The giant dodges them, but they explode into the base of the cliffs not far away, causing an avalanche of rock to splash into the ocean, which the giant has to dodge while still holding Hogarth in his pocket of air. More ships appear and they launch depth charges, which explode around the fleeing giant, convincing him he'd best take his chances above water. Interior agent's car. Annie stares out the window. Dean slumps in his seat.
It's my fault. I should have done something. Something different.
Know the feeling.
I just thought the kid could use a friend.
You were right, Dean. You were right.
The cliffs. With great difficulty, the iron giant climbs the rocky, crumbling cliff face, one-handed, as the military keeps the heat on. Finally, unable to find purchase on a cliff face, the giant stays on a small outcropping, turning his face to the onslaught. The military helicopters descend into view, shining blinding light, spotlights onto the giant, who is now showing a lot of wear and tear. Weapons break out like hives all over the giant's body. It's clear that the army is about to get the worst end of this deal. Close the giant's face. Something changes in the giant. He wills the weapons to retreat back into his body, and, haltingly, they do. Inside Chopper, the pilot trains his weapons on the giant and shouts into his radio.
We have him in our sights, sir.
Exterior Town Street. Kent is rabid.
What are you waiting for? Fire!
The cliff face. The giant turns, but he's surrounded. It looks bad. Then, a low rumbling sound begins and builds to a roar.
What's happening?
Both look down. The giant's feet begin to flame like rockets as he blasts off into the night sky. Exterior, the giant flying through the air. Night. The giant and Hogarth are flying. Kind of. They blast along, out of control, the giant's arms flailing.
Steer that way! I don't know. Point your arms. Maybe like Superman.
The giant does as he's told, and they fly, more or less, in that direction. The giant grins.
Okay, now land. Drop your arms.
The giant lowers his arms to his side, and the rockets sputter out. The two plummet to the ground. Ka-thump. Exterior, the woods stay. Hogarth and the giant, dazed from their landing, collect their wits. And here come the spotter planes. Exterior, cliff day. Hogarth and the giant stand together, watch the army close in.
It's no good. There's too many of them. We'll never get away.
He sits down in despair. The giant sits down too.
They're going to take you away, giant. There's nothing we can do.
For a long moment, they sit in silence. Finally, the giant speaks.
Rock.
Huh?
Rock. Tree.
Hogarth smiles.
Yeah. Remember when I taught you that?
Church. School sucks.
That was a great night, too.
Fogger.
Yeah.
Deer.
I know. We've been through a lot together, haven't we?
He puts his hand in the giant's hand.
Gonna miss you too much. I'm gonna miss you so much.
Submarine periscope point of view. Through a long periscope lens, as the sub rounds the point, we see the cliff and the giant come into view. Interior, submarine. The first mate looks up from the periscope.
I've got a visual on the monster, sir.
Oh, do we have a clear shot?
Not yet, sir.
Get closer! Don't surface until the last minute!
Interior, naval cruiser brigade, same time.
Monster sighted off the port bow.
We'll only get one shot! Full speed ahead!
Underwater, the bay, continuous. The sub begins to rise to the surface, unaware that the cruiser is speeding toward the same position. The cruiser swerves to avoid collision, but it's too late. The cruiser clips the submarine aft, causing a fatal breach that splits the sub. Inside the sub, chaos. The ocean rushes in as electricity arcs up the severed wiring of the sub's missile system. It fires. Exterior, Rockwell, Main Street, continuous. 3 Polaris missiles break the water surface, one of which sports a large gash in its side, its circuitry sparking, clearly malfunctioning. Their second stage rockets fire, causing several clusters of townsfolk to turn and watch, mouths agape, as the missiles climb up into the night sky. Exterior, cliff, day. Hogarth and the giant watch the missiles streak into the sky.
What's happening?
Hogarth looks out at sea. On the docks of one of the warships, he can see people panicking.
There must be some mistake.
He looks up at the sky again. A look of fear comes over him. He begins to pace.
Oh no. Oh no.
In his voice is a note of desperation we've never heard before. The giant seems to notice. He looks at Hogarth puzzled, trying to understand. Hogarth points at the sky.
The missiles. Missiles. They're nuclear. Nuclear. When they come down?
He mimes a missile coming down and exploding.
Death.
The giant reacts. Hogarth gestures at the town around him.
Everything.
The giant looks at the sky, then at the town, then after a moment back at Hogarth. He picks up 2 leaves, one green and one brown. He gives Hogarth the green leaf, keeping the brown one for himself.
What? What do you mean? I don't understand.
The giant looks at Hogarth, gently touching the side of his face with a massive finger. And with that, the giant blasts off into the sky. Hogarth looks at his leaf again, and a look of dawning comprehension comes over him. Exterior space, upper atmosphere over eastern U.S. coast. The giant blasts along at full power to catch up. His radar tracking, the giant spots the missiles. Suddenly, 2 of the missiles' rockets fire, sending them off towards separate targets on the Earth's surface. While the damaged missile just fizzes and slowly starts to drop straight down toward Maine far below. Interior agent's car. Annie and Dean look out the back window.
What is it?
Oh, Polaris missile, I think.
Shouldn't we get to a shelter?
It wouldn't matter.
They look at each other for a long, silent beat. Then he reaches out and takes her hand. Exterior, Rockwell. A deathly hush has fallen over all assembled. Kent, looking ashen, starts slowly backing toward the jeep and escape. Without turning around, the general barks loudly at Kent.
This is your party, Mansley. Don't even think about leaving early, Lieutenant.
The lieutenant pulls his sidearm and levels it at Kent. Kent winces, caught. Exterior space, upper atmosphere. The giant takes off after the first missile. He concentrates and the panel on his arm opens up, revealing the now familiar weapon. He fires at the distant glare of the missile rockets, igniting the warhead on the second shot. There's a blinding flash, followed by a shockwave, but the giant remains intact. He doubles back in pursuit of the second missile. Sighting it, he fires and misses repeatedly, losing valuable time as he moves closer and closer to the missile. Finally, he hits it. It explodes too near him, pummeling him, throwing him back. The giant recovers and tries to shoot the remaining missile. Exterior, cliff. Several jeeps pull up alongside beside Hogarth, who is staring at the sky. The general and a group of soldiers jump out. Kent, flanked by soldiers with pistols on him, sits silently in the back of the jeep. The captain scoops up Hogarth in his arms and stares at the sky as well. In space, above the Atlantic Ocean, the giant spots the third missile arcing down toward Maine and his beloved Rockwell. He cuts in at afterburners and zooms toward it. The giant catches up to the third missile, but his weapons are charred, unable to fire. There's only one option left. With the giant, the roar of his engines fades into silence as a look of peace falls over his iron face. He wraps his arms around the nose of the missile, closing his eyes, and slams his fist into the tip of the bomb. From Earth, the blackness of night sky goes brilliant white. Exterior, Rockwell night. Lining the streets, the town people see the brilliant white sky darken, turn back into night. As one, the crowd cheers. Exterior, outer space over Asia, night. Pieces of the giant rain all over the eastern hemisphere in a spectacular display. Exterior, cliff. The general gets word over his headset.
He did it.
The soldiers cheer. The general approaches Kent, still flanked by military officers.
As for you, Mansley, you're under arrest, and all that implies.
Kent visibly withers.
But the giant.
The general looks at Hogarth with great sadness and shakes his head. Hogarth hides his face and sobs. The cheers trail off as the soldiers realize the great sacrifice that the big metal monster has made for them and mankind. The general looks at his men.
Let's go home.
The general carries Hogarth to the jeep. Hogarth stares at the green leaf in his hand. We close on the leaf and match to the same leaf. It is now brown. We pull out to reveal that we're in Hogarth's bedroom, where the leaf sits on Hogarth's bookshelf beside the picture of his father. We pan out the window to Rockwell itself. It's springtime and everything old is new again. Exterior Rockwell Streets, day. Dean and Annie walk hand in hand with Hogarth alongside. Everyone smiles and waves. All three are now celebrities, and even Dean seems well liked and respected. The busybodies spot the trio and whisper to each other.
Why don't they make a lovely family?
Dean and Annie exchange a smile. This time, Hogarth smiles and nods too. Then something on the ground catches his eye. A scorched piece of iron. Hogarth picks it up, examines it, a bittersweet expression on his face. Hogarth carefully puts the piece in his pocket and looks up into the sky. Exterior, Northern India, night. A lonely kid from India, Sashi, a tinkerer, sits in his room working on the electronics project. It's a poor but well-kept home. Out a window, a meteor plows into their field. Kaboom! The meteor crater. Ropes lead down into the crater, pull back to reveal Sashi has an elephant pulling out the meteor.
Pull!
The elephant strains, pulls. It's the head of the giant. The boy leaps into the air, shouting, overjoyed. Interior, a barn in India, evening. In an India version of Hogarth barn, Sashi cleans the giant's head, but it looks dead.
Shashi, dinner!
Coming!
Shashi walks out, then crackle. Lights flicker in the giant's eyes, and the eyes light up. The giant looks around, comes to his senses, sees his predicament, and the antenna raises up out of his head. Angles all over the world. Giant parts, wherever they've fallen, suddenly snap to attention. Several nuts and bolts dig themselves up out of sand. The pieces start hopping away. Part of a finger surfaces in the sea and worms toward shore. A sign by an ocean liner reads India. Several parts sneak up the gangplank. Interior, Hogarth's room, night. Hogarth is awakened by a rattling sound. He looks to see the scorched piece of iron on his dresser as it drops to the floor and starts moving toward his window. Hogarth beams and opens his window to release it. Music soars as the boy watches the piece of metal go, his mind swimming with new possibilities. Above the planet, the giant's scorched hand orbits listlessly. Suddenly, it weakens and slowly turns away from us. Burning as it hits the atmosphere, the hand reaches toward Earth. Fade, everything to black, except the tiny, flaming dot. The end.
Woo!
Yip, yip.
So good. Wow.
Nice. It was awesome.
That was awesome, everyone.
My favorite.
And for those who haven't seen the movie, like, as well written as this screenplay is, there are differences between the screenplay and the movie, and I feel like they made the right choices. So if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it, you don't want to watch that and check that out.
I was gonna say the same thing too. It's pretty fascinating, like how much difference it is. Like when you see the movie and then come in and watch this, there are a lot of the components built into like how they made the changes and choices that they did. But yeah, it's very interesting.
Yep. But man, you guys all did amazing. That was like so enjoyable to read and hear you guys do.
Yeah, everyone's
great.
characters were so awesome. Very, very cool, you guys. That was a great read.
Yeah, I agree. All of it.
Fun.
You too, Toni.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to the main character, Toni, over here.
I didn't mean to be the main character. You're supposed to ignore me, really.
Yeah.
I'm glad I read the
whole.
whole thing, though, because I didn't see the movie. And when I read through it this afternoon, I actually verbally read through it because I realized that if I don't actually read it, I'll like skip over stuff. I actually got teary. I was like, oh, this is good that I know this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it. Yeah. It's emotional.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a big hunk of iron. We get emotional over a big hunk of iron that has feelings.
Well, I cried.
I
when he
mean,
got
I think
born.
that's the magic of this, right? Is
Yeah.
like there's so many movies out there where it's like bad things coming from space that are strange, you know? And this is a totally different take on it. It's something that comes from outer space and it's different and we don't quite know what it is. And it takes a child's curiosity to really like bridge that gap and extend that love and end up making a connection. Like, dude, how cool would it be to have a giant metal man that was your best friend? Like, that would be the coolest thing ever.
Right?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I hope
Shawn,
I did
can
it.
I go play with it?
I hope I did an okay job as captain. I drew my inspiration from the Star Trek captains and the captain from
that's so
Tintin.
cool.
You didn't do okay. You did great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You did much better than okay. So
Thank you.
that's awesome.
And the
There was
Oh,
a
sorry.
parallel between the giant and Frankenstein. At the end, when the children and the babies are smiling and waving, that's what it was like for Frankenstein. It was the adults that were afraid of him.
Yeah. And
I think
this one
that's-
shows
I mean,
that,
it's a heavy influence for sure, you know?
yeah, and it shows that he could have gone either way, good or bad, depending on how people reacted to him and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's true of us too, you know?
it's interesting. You know, people always react with fear to what they don't understand. And that's what this movie's about. Like people reacting with fear to what they don't understand. But there's always that few minority that reacts with love to what's hard to understand. And I think more of us need to be like that.
Exactly.
And that's partially why I got into the creative arts with the writing and acting, to teach people that neurodiversity isn't a bad thing. It helps me express myself and it helps me teach other people that different isn't bad. It's different, but it's not bad.
Hell yeah.
And I'm gonna cry.
I love you, Heather. That
Love
was
you.
awesome.
I love all of you. You're great.
Thank you for sharing.
Pass the Kleenex around, everyone.
Yeah. I cried during this movie, dude. It's harsh, man. I mean,
It
it's
is.
so true, right? Like, people are very apt to just throw out their defenses and run in fear and anger. And as soon as you extend that bridge of compassion, I mean, it opens up this world of possibilities. This kid could have been scared. He could have been angry. And that monster would have killed him and started killing everybody else. But he showed kindness. He showed compassion and warmth. He tried to save this thing that he had no idea what it was or who it was. And turns out that this guy noticed it and remembered it, I mean, and there's stories across that. I mean, there was a guy that saved an alligator or a crocodile down in Africa. And the thing was like his best friend for the rest of his life. Like big, scary creatures, while we see him as that, are still, we get kindness and it cures everything, man. It does.
all right. Anyone else have something they want to say about it before we do our little outros?
Well,
I wanted to.
it's silly. I do all these roles in hopes of someday achieving a dream. Like one of my little dreams is to maybe someday be on Star Trek or Star Wars or some major little movie thing. So maybe it's a possibility. And to play the role of a captain, that's pretty cool. And that's, Star Trek is where I drew part of the inspiration for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's definitely a possibility. And it's great that you put that out there. And always, again, we don't want to wait for permission from someone else. So if you're able to, write your little Star Trek thing, make yourself a captain and go act it out. You know what I mean?
Oh, I
Make your-
hardly wait for permission to do anything.
Good. Didn't mean to assume that. Wasn't assuming. Trying. Yeah. We want to see that too. So.
I've already written for Star Trek now, and I've done a fan film for Star Trek actually over lockdown. But I want to be like on the TV, being
Official.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. All right.
And I don't know if it was said here or if it's somewhere else. Some of the facts, I can't think of the word for them, but the behind the scenes of this.
Mhm.
Are you going to go over that? Because some of that.
No,
is
we can go over it, or you bring it up and then we can all discuss it.
Okay, well, just and I don't know if I'm getting it right, but the writer of this started with the thought, and that's okay. I can go with.
Well, if you want, yeah, the director, Brad Bird, who also wrote and did like the first draft of it. Like this is based on a book from London, and but they changed the book a lot for this movie. Like Dean wasn't in the book, Kent Mansley wasn't in the book. In the book, at the end of it, there's a dragon, but the writer of the book also did it to try and, teach their kids about death or different things. And this came about because it was Pete Townsend wanted to write this as a musical and make a musical and get that made. And then they gave it to Brad Bird, who worked on The Simpsons. And after this movie, he worked on Incredibles and Ratatouille and stuff. But he took that movie and that was pitched to him, this movie, and he went to the executives and he gave a different pitch to it. And he's like, what if it was a gun that didn't want to be a gun? What if a gun had a soul and didn't want to be a gun? And the one part that like really registered with him and was close to him, and why he thought that and why he came out with that is because his sister died from gun violence. Like his sister's husband killed her or whatever. So that was a close thing for him, and how he tied that in as well. That's what you're getting to, Angelina?
Yeah.
So.
Wait, who was that? Was that Brad Bird or was the other screenwriter?
Brad Bird.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So knowing that and then reading this, it was like really, that much more depth to it, and sad.
It shows, man. This is a great movie. And then it just makes total sense. Like we were talking about earlier, how this didn't get the huge promotional budget that it should have gotten. And it did become a cult classic. And then you watch it now, it still holds up very, very well. And then you look into where Brad Bird went after this, and it just makes sense, man.
Yeah.
And this was bomb proof. And then, The Incredibles. I mean, that like revamped superheroes altogether just by that one movie,
And one thing that's kind of cool, I'll do a little tidbit before something else. In here, the conductor and engineer of the train, the people that they did caricatures in the movie were two of the famous 12 Old Men, the like original animators of Disney, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. Like it's caricatures of them talking in the movie. I think they did the voices too. And then in The Incredibles, they have, which is Brad Bird's movie as well, they have Frank and Ollie Johnston also do have a role in talking in that movie as well. And one of my teachers, Pixar animator, he got to animate both these scenes. He animated them in 2D and he animated them in 3D. So they're kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Now, Shawn, you're younger than most of us here. Have you seen The Iron Giant? Because it maybe came out before you were born, I don't know, or when you were a baby.
Yes, yeah, it came out like 5 years before I was born. It came out in 1999. I was born in 2004. I have seen it. I've seen it many times, and I haven't seen it in quite a while. And just reading the script, I was getting teary near the end, and it kind of brought back like a lot of like childhood memories for me. And like even when I was younger, it'd make me cry too. Like I obviously when I was younger, I didn't really understand like the whole point of what the movie was trying to get. But now that I'm older, I understand a lot more about it. And overall, it's a great movie. Great scripts too. It's really well written.
Yeah, and you're definitely older than the Hogarth in that they have in the movie, but like you as now, like totally work as it. It was great. I think.
Thank you.
And brought it. Wow.
They should do a live action and just kind of cast you because you could work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want them to re-release it as an animated movie. In
They
theaters.
should.
Yeah.
For all the kids that haven't seen it.
Yes. It's hard to find too. Or it was in the past anyways for me.
Well, thank God for pawn shops and thrift shops. You could probably find it there.
Yeah, I think I have it on DVD. I have it on VHS, and I mean now at least because people love it, they rent it, and I think on Cartoon Network or other places they play it often on holidays and different stuff.
And they probably have it in the library too. I mean, no doubt.
Oh, well, maybe it was just hard for me to find after I watched it the first time.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to find online for free, which is what we all try and do these days. So.
Oh, I don't know. I hadn't looked recently, but years ago when I was trying to find it, I couldn't find it anywhere.
Oh wow.
So.
That's too bad.
Well, I go to the library for videos sometimes just because it's somewhere nice to get out. There's so few places you can actually go anymore in the library. It's just, they have regulations. It's safe.
Yeah.
I'm vaxxed. Whatever.
It's on Netflix.
What
It
is
is?
that? No. I don't think
Netflix
so.
Canada?
Watch Iron
Maybe in
Giant on
Netflix.
Netflix. That's what I see.
I don't know.
But I don't
Click
know
on
if
it.
they still have it. Maybe they had it at one
Oh, you know
time.
what? I
Yeah,
have
I
not
think
even
that's
looked at all the movies I have on Netflix.
Well, before we go off on a tangent,
Sorry.
somebody else, if you guys haven't seen it, find a way to watch it. That's what we're saying.
Definitely.
It's
Not
worth
there.
buying,
Mm.
paying for, renting.
Dude, and then like I was watching it this morning, and this totally caught me by surprise because it's such a deep movie, right? And there's so much in there, and it's so truth. But it has like one of the funniest poop jokes like of all time. And I didn't see it in the script, so that's one more reason why the viewers need to go watch the movie because you will not be able to make it through without laughing. Promise.
It kind of was in there.
It was?
It,
Where he like pushes him out the window?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
hear the loud smashing on the ground.
That was the one part that wasn't, but it was with and
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
at the front. Yeah.
And they had him fall on the pile of toilet paper in the script.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And there's so many things like in the here that it's great what is here. It's great what we did. But some of their choices on animated, like right then, that Kent Mansley guy like put his head in the bathroom and he's like hiding himself, and the mom like smashes his face in the doorway. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah. It's
yeah,
a
that
great
wasn't written in
movie.
the script, but it was well done, well animated.
All right. We'll wrap this up. I'll go around with the way it's on the order in my screen. So this is the time when you guys say anything you're working on or where people can find you, follow you, contact you to hire you, etc. So Don, you're up first.
Oh, well, Don Lampasone again. You can always find me work that I've done on my own website, donlampasone.com. Do a lot of political stuff, as I've mentioned. I can't really say a lot about it, but I really like doing these because it's so different from my normal everyday thing. Do some community theater and short films every now and then. Working on a series right now, but I'm not sure where it's going yet, so we'll see.
All right, cool. And you definitely brought it today, doing two completely different roles. Like everyone was in their little chat that they don't see on screen. They're like, "Oh, I love Don's like Iron Giant and stuff." So that was cool. And Vicki, loved your chief, etc. But so.
If you want to contact me, I'm on Facebook under my name, Vicki Dykes. I'm on Instagram. I'm Yoga Grandma 7, and how else? I'm just overwhelmed with how much fun I had with this, and I feel personally that I had the best line of the whole movie. If I hear I've got a feeling one more time, I'm going to puke through the phone lines. I thought that was hilarious. I'm stepping out into different areas am an actress, but I'm starting to write, and I'm trying to do more stuff behind the scenes. So, but yeah, I'm an actress. So if you want to hire me, I'm here.
Awesome. Angelina.
Hi. Yeah, I'm still. So probably Facebook is the easiest place to get a hold of me, and it's Angelina Peterson. Pretty much the way it sounds. Although it's actually really hard to find me on there. So look up my business is Your Adored Life, and that's on Facebook. And that's documentary, custom documentaries for families. So I help people get their story out there so that they can pass down generation to generation. So very heartwarming stuff.
Super special, super important. And Toni, it's almost like you're not there. It's like a black void.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm starting to get into voiceover work, and I have my closet completely filled with blankets above me, blankets behind me. So really there's no point in turning a light on because you can't really see it anyways. So I'm here, but I'm just the blank Table Read Tuesdays screen.
Yes, I'm surprised the screen isn't even lighting up your face of whatever you're reading.
I know. Yeah, well, oh well. Anyways.
It's like the very last shot where it closes in and there's one little red dot.
Right, exactly, yes. So yes, I'm Toni Flora. You can find me on Facebook, spelled the same exact way you see it on the screen. And I've done theater acting for on and off most of my life, getting into voiceover. And this weekend, I think we finally get to start recording a series for, I don't know where that's going, but I'm really excited about it because
that's awesome.
It's a spacey outer space thing, and I'm really excited about that one. So that should be fun.
Sounds like it. Yeah, let us know when you can share anything more about it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
All right, Heather-Leigh Cameron.
Hello. Yes, I am looking for work. Yes, you can contact me to hire me. I represent myself. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a self-producer. I am more than happy to work. I am triple vaccinated, just so you know, because that's important. I'm a dual citizen of Canada and the United States with permissions to work in both countries. I have that paperwork sorted. I can be found on Heather-Leigh Cameron, creative artist, Facebook. It's called Facebook/Heather-Leigh Freelancer, or The Storm and Latter-day Saint on YouTube. Latter-day Saint, Latter Day Saint. And those are all my links. In acting, I can do theater, voice acting, voice over, all sorts. I'm very much looking for work. Please hire me. You can contact me through email, if you'd rather not look at my pages, through email at heather.leigh.cameron@gmail.com.
Cool. One little Gmail thing to know is like they don't even care about those periods. You can do the periods in there if you want, or leave them out, and it will work. But I was just thinking that's a little tidbit for people. Sorry, Clint, laughing at me.
I think that's an awesome tidbit. I think that's very important. I think we should get more tidbits like that. Hey everybody, super fun to do this once again. I love it every time that I'm here. Anyways, you guys can find me. I am out there. I'm an actor, aspiring actor, writer, director, and producer. My name's Clint. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Clint Monroe, 2017. Clint as in Clint Eastwood, Monroe as in Monroe, 2017. And then on Instagram, you can find me at Gems of Zen Productions. And to be honest, man, this show has helped me a lot. It's something that I like to continue doing. But it kind of like after seeing a couple of scripts and getting my eyes on what it's supposed to look like, I ended up writing my first short script that I'm going to adapt into a film. It's short. It's going to be about 11 to 12 pages, but it's, I think, going to be hilarious and give me the chance to practice on, going between the external world of a character and the internal world of the character, and bouncing back and forth between the two of them. So a lot of quick shots, a lot of POVs, a lot of voiceovers and stuff like that. So it's definitely given me a chance to grow. And honestly, when I typed it up the first time, just being here, seeing these scripts and sitting here taking notes, like it just appeared on the page in front of me, and it was awesome. So I just want to say thank you, Cypress Studios, and thank you, Jacob, for hosting this. This is so much fun.
That's actually really cool, because that's kind of one of the reasons it was started, right, Jacob? To improve people's screenwriting.
Yeah, they say one of the best ways to get better at screenwriting is read the screenplays of well done produced films and TV and all that stuff. So
yeah, I mean,
that's definitely
honestly,
one of the reasons I'm doing it, so I can read more, see how they do it, and take that in and learn from it and apply it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in the beginning of this, man, like first note that I have written down is I mean, when you're sitting there and there's people trying to pick up scripts and they're reading 100 scripts a day or whatever, like how do you make your stand out? And if you go back to the beginning of this script, man, it is super, super intense. Lots of exclamation points. It's just grabbing you from the get-go, And so you read this with us, and then you go take it to your own work, and then hopefully we get to see your name on the big screen, written by right there. That'd be awesome.
And then you take your screenplay, and you have other actors read that out loud, so you can hear it differently and see what it sounds like when they actually read those words.
Yeah.
And stuff. Awesome. That's awesome to hear. And now, Shawn. Tell us.
Hi. Oh goodness, this was really fun. That's what I just wanted to say straight off the bat. This is probably like my second time doing a script read, and this is my first time doing it with you guys. And I just wanted to say I had a blast. I thought it was super, super cool, and I definitely felt everyone connected. It was really nice to see everyone like full-fledged in this. And you guys I'm an actor, and I've been acting for 5 years. And you guys can contact me on my Instagram page. It's probably the easiest and fastest way to contact me instead of like email and stuff. It's just my name, Shawn Alexander. And yeah.
Okay, awesome. And Jamie Hill was here, but she had to go. So we just want to say thank you also, Jamie Hill, for being here and participating. All right. Great job. This was, I think, one of our best ones so far. I don't want to say for sure, but for me it was. It all came together. Now this is just for us here. If your device you guys are on gives you an option to save it, just as a backup, go ahead and save it and let me know if it did or not. We should be able to save it all on this side, but just as a backup, if you guys can, once it closes down. All right, you guys, thank you everybody for being here, for providing your time for us to read the script so we all can have a great time. We all can learn from it, and anybody watching these can also learn from it. So I hope to see you all again. All right.
Oh, you will.
Have a good night.
Thank you again. Have a great night, everybody. Shawn, good work, man. Welcome to the
family.
Thank you so much.
Take it off.